This meeting is private.
Copyright?
Yeah. This meeting is private.
Copyright?
Sorry?
Does Glenn copyright his work?
Yeah, all my slideshows, the PowerPoint presentations are common law copyrighted, but let's let Lori get started, and then if you have questions, you can ask your questions, okay?
Okay, gotcha. I'll go and grab it again. Here it is. This meeting is private. Bearing false witness, misrepresentation, and posting inflammatory rhetoric in a public forum is forbidden and shall be addressed in appropriate manner. To eliminate all conflict and false allegations, is there anyone in attendance at tonight's meeting that is a member or agent of any law enforcement agency of a federal, state, county, city, or township agency present? Good. This is also for notary, poll workers, school board members, anyone who would sign an oath to the de facto government. Please raise your hand, say your name, and state your position. 2 more times. Please be quiet, everyone. This meeting is private. Bearing false witness, misrepresentation, and posting inflammatory rhetoric in public forums is forbidden and shall be addressed in appropriate manner. To eliminate all conflict and false allegations, is there anyone in attendance at tonight's meeting that is a member or agent of any law enforcement agency or federal, state, county, city, township agency present? This is also for notary, poll workers, school board members, anyone who has signed an oath to the de facto government. Please raise your hand, say your name, and state your position. No. One last time, this meeting is private. Bearing false witness, misrepresentation, and posting inflammatory rhetoric in public forums is forbidden and shall be addressed in an appropriate manner. To eliminate all conflict and false allegations, is there anyone in attendance at tonight's meeting that is a member or agent of any law enforcement agency of the federal, state, county, city, township agency present? Perfect. This is also for notary, poll workers, school board members, anyone who has signed an oath to the de facto government. Please raise your hand, say your name, and state your position. Looks like we're all clear. Awesome. Okay, take it away, Glenn.
All right. Well, some people asked about whether it's copyrighted, whether my PowerPoint presentations are copyrighted, but really, I use all of my information that I use is public. And so, there's people that have wanted to mirror, quote unquote, mirror my channel, which means they want to download my videos and upload them on their own channel. And I tell them that they can have links to my videos all day long, and that's fine. And there's people that have actually gone ahead and done it without permission, and I turned them into YouTube, and YouTube took them down. Um, so, but the information is all generally available public information, and so I really can't really copyright anything, just the PowerPoint presentation itself. And so if people want to take those citations and use them, I can't really stop them because all that's public information. Anyways, and so what some people do is they'll take a clip, which is perfectly fine. I can't do anything about that. If they take a clip and then make a little video about it or something like that, they can certainly do that. They just can't use my whole video. Anyways, and I make my videos available. I have thumb drives with all my videos that are available. Excuse me. Now that YouTube has monetized my channel, I didn't even ask them to. I think that they're concerned that because I put at the bottom in the show notes for the video, the first thing I put in there is Alphabet and Google and YouTube want to be sued, and they do, and it ain't over. It's coming. Let me tell you. But I got, it's in my bucket list.
Yeah, you're busy vacationing in Jersey right now, so yeah, I know you got a hard life going on. I know. No, I'm kidding. That's awesome that you're in Atlantic City.
Well, no, Atlantic City's 10 miles away. I sent you a picture of it here today. I took a picture from the boardwalk when I was riding my bike. I go and ride. I have a bike that they let me use here, and so I do 5 miles on the boardwalk every day, and then I usually, like today, I probably walked for probably about a 3/4 of a mile. I go out on the beach in the sand, in the soft sand. I don't want to do it on the hard sand. The soft sand gives you exercises muscles that wouldn't otherwise get exercised, and so I do it in the soft sand, and I walk forwards and backwards and maybe do a little jogging and that kind of stuff. So I went for probably 3/4 of a mile today in the sand, and trying to get a little exercise. And it's a gorgeous day. Smell that salt air and the ocean and everything else. It's paradise. And tomorrow is Northeast Private Information Share, the second weekend. And this presentation actually I did on the first weekend, and I didn't do a live stream with it. And so, but I recorded it with my my camcorder, and the camcorder. What happened is the volume wasn't very good, and so then when I increased the volume in my video editing software, there was a hum in the background, and I'd noticed that hum before, but I thought it had to do with where I was doing it, and now I know that it was because of the camcorder. So I ordered a new camcorder, and I've got that, and so now we'll see how that works out. Anyways, so that's where it's at. So let's get going with this. Does anybody else have any more questions before we get going? This presentation is about the bar and the bar members. We're going to be talking this weekend actually about, and there'll be some presentations tomorrow about appealable issues and demurs. There'll be another video about demurs. I'm not sure if I'll get it done tomorrow. It's going to be tomorrow and Sunday. It'll be the second weekend of the Northeast Private Information Share, and so I've got presentations on demur. I've got one on appealable issues, and I've got one on what's the other one? There's 4 of them actually that I have ready to go. I might get them all done this weekend. I might not. It's better to have too much than not enough, because you run out of stuff, Anyways, so we'll see how it goes. So this is the one that I did last weekend, and I thought I recorded it, and the recording didn't turn out well, and so I figured I'd live stream it today. So it's the bar, and they're Masons, they're Satanists, they're liars, and this is all arguments actually that I brought up in my recent federal court case too, by the way. Yeah, these lawyers. There's lawyers that I've talked to and told them about some of the stuff they do, and they say you do it because you can. In other words, they could never do this kind of stuff, make the kind of arguments I make, because they're members of the bar. They get slapped, and that's exactly why I file bar grievances against them and judicial complaints, and just they're all foreign agents of the Roman cult. Oh, the Roman cult. That's it. The next one, the other one we're going to do is about the Roman cult, about how all courts are Roman law, which comes from the Roman cult, and so they're satanic. Don't get me going. You're going to get me going. Anyways, so let's get going on this one, unless anybody's got anything else.
Glenn, are you going to be live streaming those attempts at doing those, or you're going to be live streaming it tomorrow on your YouTube channel then?
Yes, they will be live streamed, but I have set up a membership which is not an expensive one. There's actually 2 levels of memberships. One of them is $4.99, which is basically for anybody. And then there's a $19.99 membership that if you subscribe to that, then you get free admission to the Northeast Private Information Share. Comes with the membership. But some of them are going to be memberships, part of the membership videos. And so we'll see how that all goes. Some of them will be completely public. We'll see which ones. I haven't decided, but I'm definitely I'm moving stuff towards memberships, and so people want to sign up for a membership, they're certainly welcome to do so, and we'll take it from there.
That's the way everything's going now, because they're getting into the advertising so much more, right? If you're not doing that, then they've put so many different advertisements on that apparently you don't have control of. So that's a way of controlling that, right?
Well, YouTube they have demonetized some of my videos, or limited advertising that they put on some of my videos. They've taken some of my videos down. The ones that are down, I've got uploaded on HowTube. And so, but lately they haven't, that's all going to be part of the litigation when the time comes. And so I think that's one of the reasons I make some membership, in case there's something that might be controversial, then they're less likely to look at it under the membership, because there's actually a friend of mine I helped set up his YouTube channel. He uses memberships to he uploads videos that are controversial, and he puts them in membership, and YouTube doesn't even look at them. If he takes them out of the membership and makes them public, then sometimes they'll take them down because they're controversial. And but just the membership alone, they don't even look at them. And so that's a way of getting around the censorship on the part of YouTube. So, and if you notice at the bottom of the screen here, it's common law copyright 2025. Yep, and you can see it on the live stream too.
Yep. Yeah, all clear.
So, anyways, so I have that footer on there, but it's just a PowerPoint presentation. I can't stop them from taking the material and using it in their own stuff, and I make PDFs of the file, and I upload a link. I put it on Google Docs, and I have a link in the show notes of the videos, so they can download the PDF, and then they can have the court sites and all that stuff. They don't have to write them down. Like when it's in a video, it's hard to write that stuff down, and sometimes it goes by pretty quick. Anyways, okay, so I'm just going to step aside for a minute, and I'll be right back, and then we'll get started.
Sounds good.
So one thing I was going to say today too is when I was on the boardwalk, the there was quite a few people there today. It's Good Friday, and I'm hearing that it's going to be really busy tomorrow. It's Easter, well, Saturday, and it's a big weekend here. And Saturday and Sunday going to be really busy. But I'm going to be doing this Northeast Private Information Share, so I won't have an opportunity to go out there. But so we'll see. I know that today, usually I'm able to. There's not much, people when they're out there. They don't really, kids and all that stuff. People just run all over the place on the boardwalk. And so when you're riding a bike on the boardwalk, you got to watch out for people, I'll tell you. And so today it was really, I was slowed right down, and because there's all sorts of kids, and they're just kids, you never know what they're going to do. And so you have to watch out for everybody. And so there's about a mile and a half of it that you have to be really careful on. The rest of it is you can it's not as wide, there's not as many people, and you can ride the bike more. Anyways, so and I expect tomorrow, even if I could go on the boardwalk, it probably wouldn't be worth the trouble because it's so busy. You you might as well walk because you can't ride a bike. There's too many people. It's just people are everywhere. And it's good that people are out there enjoying it. It was a gorgeous day today. It was clear. It was gorgeous. And so in the 60s, 65, something like that. And it's supposed to be even warmer tomorrow. So anyway, so let's get going. So first of all, I'm not a liar. Well, I'm not a lawyer. No, I'm not a liar. You should never take my word for anything. You should always do your own research. I provided references to aid you in your research. But I don't know everything. And I'm open to any ideas. There's 4 types of people you'll meet in your life. There's the people who try to wake up the slaves. There's the slave masters. There's the people who have no idea they're slaves. And there's the people who like being slaves. Which one are you? Do you really know for sure? Are you who you think you are? Last Tuesday, we had our usual Tuesday meeting in Texas, and I was here, but they put it up on a Zoom call, so I was able to record the whole thing. And there was a guy that was talking about trust law, and all these courts operate under trust law. There's no doubt about it. But that's all Satanism. I need to make a video about this. But what happens? And there's court cases that talk about it. What happens is normally equity is supposed to follow common law. And equity is supposed to follow the law, which is common law. And that's the way it's talked about in the Bible. But what happens is when you have martial law supersedes and replaces common law. And that goes to, in the cause of necessities for taking up arms, it talks about that. And so when you have martial law, then equity can do anything it wants. And these judges will actually say, I can do anything I want in here. And they can't. Because there's no common law, and that's Roman law, and so they're Satanists. That's why it's all satanic. Anyways, if you can see through the illusion, then you are the solution. If the people don't know their basic rights and freedoms, how can they know when or if their rights and freedoms are being infringed? Never forget the men who started this country were marijuana growing, whiskey drinking, tax evading rebels who left their beds at night to shoot at the cops. And, think about it. That's exactly what they did. Okay, that was the militias. And they went out and hunted down the enemy, the tyrants, and blew their brains out. Anyways, hopefully it doesn't come to that. I think that with Trump in office, I think that we're going to have a relatively peaceful transition, but so we'll see how it all plays out. I think that they're probably going to have to call up the militia, and that means everybody, all the able-bodied men at least, although the militia can have women on it. I'm past the age when they want you on the militia, but I'll be glad to help out any way I can. That's for sure. All tyranny needs to gain a foothold is for people of good conscience to remain silent. I don't trust the government. I don't trust the medical, pharmaceutical, industrial complex. I don't trust the military industrial complex. I don't trust the mainstream media. I don't trust the bankster criminal cabal that owns the government, owns the medical, pharmaceutical, industrial complex, and owns the military industrial complex, and owns the mainstream media. And if you call me a conspiracy theorist, I don't trust you. Government's not reason, it's not eloquence, it is force. Like fire, it's a dangerous servant and a fearful master. The greatest danger to American freedom is a government that ignores the Constitution. And ain't that the truth? And that's exactly, in some cases, the way it is now. Between 75 to 90% of all lawyers are either incompetent, dishonest, or both. And that's Earl Warren, former Chief Justice of the U.S. Supreme Court. And, who would know better than the Chief Justice of the U.S. Supreme Court? I need to modify this.
You should put in a statement in there about Judge Duke. He was spelled it all out clearly.
Judge who?
Judge Duke. I don't know, he's somewhere in the deep south. And he did an article and it explained all of everything that you do, but directly from a judge's words and handwriting.
I'm not sure which one you're talking about. I think I know what you're talking about. Yeah, he talks about the commercial nature of the courts and stuff like that. It's true.
Clearly, yeah.
Anyways, so an attorney, he is, however, in a sense, an officer of the state with an obligation to the court. Okay, that's what an attorney is under Book 7, Corpus Juris Secundum, Section 4, attorneys. His first duty is to the courts and to the public, not to the client. Whenever his duties to his client conflict with those as an officer of the court in the administration of justice, the former must yield to the latter. And that's Corpus Juris Secundum, Book 7, Section 4 on attorneys. Clients are also called wards of the court. Did you know that? And a ward of the court is an imbecile. A person ward of the court is an infant, persons of unsound mind. A ward of the court's an imbecile. A ward of the court is not competent. Everything is about competence and incompetence. This is why they're representing you, because you're not competent to make decisions for yourself. Therefore, the attorney is going to make the decisions for you. There is no such thing as an incompetent sovereign. Do you know who you are? Well, this is interesting. Let me just check something here. Impropria persona, in one's own proper person. It is a rule in pleading that pleas to the jurisdiction of the court must be pled in propria persona. Because if pleaded by attorney, they admit the jurisdiction. As an attorney is an officer of the court, he's presumed to plead after having obtained leave, which admits the jurisdiction. So if you have an attorney, you cannot challenge jurisdiction. The practice of law cannot be licensed by any state. The practice of law is an occupation of common right. The retainer. A retainer is a sum of money paid by a client to secure an attorney's availability to work for a client. The fee paid is considered earned at the time of payment because the attorney is entitled to the money regardless of whether he actually performs any services for the client, and the funds shall not be placed into the attorney's trust account. And that's Baranowski versus State Bar and the Washington State Bar News Committee's report, formal opinion number 173. Inns of court. These are certain private unincorporated associations in the nature of collegiate houses located in London and invested with the exclusive privilege of calling men to the bar. That's Black's Law Dictionary, 5th edition. There's an American Inns of Court Foundation, and every state has local Inns of Court chapters. This is their website. Downtown London is walled in approximately 1 to 2 square miles. In downtown London, the city of London was never conquered by William the Conqueror. The city of London has several gates, one of which is called Temple Bar. The only true law, 800 years of jury trial decisions, the only true law school, and there's 4 of them in the world, are in the city of London. Inns of Court is one of those law schools. All the rest of the schools teach jurisprudence, which is procedure. The city of London is foreign territory to the rest of England. During the convening of the Imperial Parliament, the king or the queen gives the throne speech. And I don't know if anybody's ever watched that. I know I grew up in Canada, so, they put it on TV. The king or the queen goes to the Temple Bar and requests permission to enter the foreign territory. There's it's a big oak door, and there's a little door, little 1 foot square door and the big door. and the king beats on the door, and the Lord Mayor of London is on the other side, and he opens up the little door and says, "What do you want?" And the queen or the king has to get permission to go into the foreign territory, and the Lord Mayor of London gets granted permission, and then he's held as a ransom until the king or queen returns. This is Concessions of England to the Pope, 1213. We will establish a perpetual obligation and concession. We will establish that from the proper and special revenues of our aforesaid kingdoms, for all the service and customs which we ought to render for them, saving in all things the penny of St. Peter, the Roman Church shall receive yearly 1,000 marks sterling, namely at the feast of St. Michael 500 marks, and at Easter 500 marks, namely for the kingdom of England 300, and the 500 marks, namely for the kingdom of England, and 300 for the kingdom of Ireland. So they got 1,000 marks. They got 500 at these twice a year, and there's 500 for England and 500 for Ireland. After the concessions of England to the Pope in 1213 was signed, King John had to make money to pay his tribute. King John imposed martial law rule and started to do things to raise money to pay his tribute. It took only 2 years for the people to figure out what was happening, and the Magna Carta was the result. This is a Canadian court case. Perlman versus Pichet. 4 DLR, Dominion Law Reports, number 147. The Magna Carta is not a unilateral act emanating solely from the spontaneous will of the king, as the charters of the predecessors of John. Neither is it a treaty, for we cannot say is concluded between 2 legitimate and independent sovereignties, nor between 2 nations, nor is it a law. The barons do not appear in it as subjects, for they are freed from their promise of fidelity, and the king brought captive, placed before them, submitted to conditions which the conquerors imposed upon him. Magna Carta is therefore a contract, but resembles a treaty concluded between 2 nations, in that one of the parties, in virtue of the law of war, can impose its will upon the other. So essentially, if you think about it, what they did is they stuck a sword to his throat and they said, "Here, king, we want you to sign this, or we're going to run you through right now." The Magna Carta is full of prohibitions against the crown for their non-judicial proceedings. And that's what's happening today, is non-judicial proceedings. No freeman shall be taken or imprisoned or seized or outlawed or exiled in any way destroyed, nor shall we go upon him nor send upon him, but by the lawful judgment of his peers or by the law of the land. No bailiff for the future shall upon his own unsupported complaint put anyone to his law without credible witnesses brought for their purposes. They do that all the time. You'll have some cop file a complaint. He's got no standing to complain about anybody. To none will we sell, to no one will refuse or delay right or justice. And they do that all the time too. Filing fees. The Crown is a corporation that's domiciled in the City of London. The Crown is owned and operated by the Vatican. The crown that belongs to the King or the Queen has CR. And for Charles, Charles Regina, ER when it was Elizabeth Regina, transposed over it. All members of the bar are foreign agents of the Crown. This is the original Article 13 and Amendment. says, if any citizen of the United States shall accept, claim, receive, or retain any title of nobility or honor, or shall, without the consent of Congress, accept or retain any present, pension, office, or emolument of any kind whatever from any emperor, king, prince, or foreign power, such person shall cease to be a citizen of the United States and shall be incapable of holding any office of trust or profit under them or either of them. That's how they used to call it. Under them is the federal government, either of them is the state government. And an office of honor, actually an office of trust, okay? Office of trust requires an oath of office. An office of trust is one that requires an oath of office. An office of profit is one which is paid. Albert Pike was a Confederate general. He's a Grand Master of the Freemasons. He wrote a book called Morals and Dogma. He predicted 3 world wars. And page 321, he said the God of the Freemasons is Satan and Lucifer. So they're Satanists. And this is taken from Honorable, okay? So what they do is there was documents that were filed into my case where they're calling the Honorable Court. Well, they're fishing for Masons. They want some of their Masonic buddies to come and bail them out. It's only the Mason who can best work who should be advanced and made honorable in the order. That's the textbook of Masonic jurisprudence, page 192, under the heading Right of Membership. Their former Grand Masters having all behaved themselves worthy of that honorable office. That's the textbook of Masonic jurisprudence, page 451, under the heading Grand Masters. The most ancient and honorable society of free and accepted Masons, listed hundreds of times in a new and revised encyclopedia, an encyclopedia of its Freemasonry and its kindred sciences, by Albert G. McKay, M.D., 33rd degree, Volume 1 and Volume 2. You have your father the devil, and the lusts of your father you will do. He was a murderer from the beginning, and abode not in the truth, because there is no truth in him. When he speaketh a lie, he speaketh of his own, for he's a liar and the father of it. But the fearful and unbelieving and abominable and murderers and whoremongers and sorcerers and idolaters and all liars shall have their part in the lake which burneth with fire and brimstone, which is the second death. So, if they are a liar, then they can't tell the truth, okay? That's what they're saying, is that every word is a lie. And so any word they say is a lie. It doesn't matter. That's all they do, is a lie. A bill of attainder means a legislative act, no matter what their form, that apply either to named individuals or to easily ascertainable members of a group in such a way as to inflict punishment on them without a judicial trial. Well, that's what they're doing nowadays. It's all bill of attainder. It's actually bill of pains and penalties, and we're going to see what that means here. Bill of attainder is a special legislative act prescribing punishment without a trial for a specific person or group. Bill of attainders are prohibited by the U.S. Constitution, Article 1, Section 9, Clause 3, and Article 1, Section 10, Clause 1. Bill of attainder, a bill of pains and penalties. A bill of pains and penalties is a legislative act, though similar to a bill of attainder, prescribes punishment less severe than capital punishment. Okay, so a bill of attainder is capital punishment. A bill of pains and penalties is anything less severe than capital punishment. Bills of pains and penalties are included with the U.S. Constitution's bans on bills of attainder. It's Black's Law Dictionary, 8th edition. Article 1, Section 9, Clause 3, no bill of attainder or ex post facto law shall be passed. Article 1, Section 10, Clause 1, no state shall enter into any treaty, alliance, or confederation, grant letters of marque, reprisal, coin money, emit bills of credit, make anything but gold or silver coin in the payment of debts, pass any bill of attainder, ex post facto law, or law impairing the obligation of contracts, or grant any title nobility. So the obviously Article 1, Section 9, Clause 3 applies to the federal government. Article 1, Section 10, Clause 1 applies to the state governments. So there's two types of courts. There's superior courts of general jurisdiction, and there's inferior courts of limited jurisdiction. So what's the difference between the two? A court of general jurisdiction is presumed to be acting within its jurisdiction until the contrary is shown. Inferior courts, also nothing shall be intended to be within the jurisdiction of an inferior court but what is expressly so alleged. And if part of the cause arises within the inferior jurisdiction and part thereof without it, the inferior court ought not to hold the plea. The king being the supreme magistrate. This is actually Tomlin's Law Dictionary, 1835 edition. So the point being is that the inferior court is there's going to be statutes that define the nature of the inferior court's jurisdiction. And so, like with the federal courts are all inferior courts of limited jurisdiction. And that was the one time that I've had a judge be nice to me, is what I told him, that he had an inferior court of limited jurisdiction and everything he does is brutal and I have nothing but contempt for you and your so-called court. And I never had a judge be so nice to me after that. I felt guilty. Anyways, a court can be a court of general jurisdiction for some purposes and a court of limited jurisdiction for other purposes. When, therefore, a court of general jurisdiction proceeds under a special statute, which is always, it becomes a court of limited jurisdiction for the purposes of such proceedings. So they presume that they're a general court of general jurisdiction. These are Roman law courts, okay? You got to understand they're all Roman law. Accordingly, we're going to talk about that tomorrow. Accordingly, where a court of general jurisdiction undertakes to carry out a special power, a decision made in the exercise of such power is treated as a ruling of a court of limited jurisdiction, and the presumption applicable to a court of general jurisdiction that it acted within the scope of this jurisdiction does not apply. It is familiar law that when special statutory authority and derogation of common law is conferred on courts of general jurisdiction, such a court of general jurisdiction becomes quad hoc, a court of inferior or limited jurisdiction. So if it's anything in derogation of common law, and it's always in derogation of common law because they're Roman law, then they're a court of inferior or limited jurisdiction. To be the statutes which would deprive a citizen of the rights of person or property without a regular trial according to the course and usage of common law would not be the law of the land, okay? Common law and law of the land are interchangeable phrases. A ministerial act is an act that a public officer is required to perform in a prescribed manner in obedience to the mandate of legal authority and without regard to his own judgment or opinion regarding such act's propriety or impropriety when a given state of facts exists. Discretion, on the other hand, is the power conferred on public functionaries to act officially according to the dictates of their own judgment. When acting to enforce a statute and its subsequent amendments to the present date, the judge of municipal court is acting as administrative officer and not in a judicial capacity. Courts administering or enforcing statutes do not act judicially, but merely ministerially, but merely act as an extension, as an agent for the involved agency, but only in a ministerial and not a discretionary capacity. So you got to understand that. So the municipal court, okay, and they're all, municipal court is an inferior court of limited jurisdiction. There's a statute that defines the nature of their jurisdiction. So then by definition, they're inferior. And so, but they're all inferior because they're all dealing with Roman law and there's no common law. It's the accepted rule, not only state courts, but of the federal courts as well, that when a judge is enforcing administrative law, they're described as mere extensions of the administrative agency for superior reviewing purposes as a ministerial clerk for an agency. Judges who become involved in enforcement of mere statutes, civil or criminal in nature, and otherwise act as mere clerks of the involved agency. There's a Roman law court right there. Judge works for the state, prosecutor works for the state, police or witness works for the state. The vast majority of the disputes that the police initiate on behalf of their employer are also adjudicated by their employer, where the plaintiff, the judge, the antagonist, the police, the only witness, also the police, all represent the same party, and since no corpus delicti, mens rea, or acts reus can be produced, doesn't technically qualify to be heard according to its own laws. The state, therefore, is indistinguishable from a criminal cartel. It's Roman law. Okay, you got to understand, this is all Roman law. Those are military uniforms. The cop has a military uniform, but so does the judge and so does the prosecutor. It's all martial law. It's Roman law. It's coming from the Roman cult. The word administrative is synonymous with the word executive. The word administrative connotes of or pertains to administration, especially management, as by managing or conducting or superintending the execution, application, or conduct of persons or things. Thus, administrative acts are those acts which are necessary to be carried out, to be done to carry out legislative policies and purposes already declared by the legislative body. So, remember what the requirement is for the Bill of Attainder. It's a special legislative act, right? It's a fact. It is common to use the two words in tandem. Ministerial officers are incompetent to receive grants of judicial power from the legislature. Their acts in attempting to exercise such powers are necessarily nullities. Where there is no jurisdiction, there is no judge. The proceeding is as nothing. Such has been the law from the days of Marshal Saya. And that's a Manning versus Ketchum, which is a federal court case quoting a U.S. Supreme Court case, Bradley versus Fisher, which is quoting Coke, 10 Coke 68. That goes back to the 1500s. But in law and in fact, such statutes are intended to be applied to those who are here as residents in the state under the Interstate Commerce Clause of the Federal Constitution and the so-called 14th Amendment. That's a summary of that case. That's not that quote. That's not a quote from that case, but that's a summary. I mean, no judge would ever say so-called 14th Amendment. Justice Thomas concurring, constitutionally conforming agency adjudication, cases involving deprivations or transfers of life, liberty, or property constitute a core of cases that must be resolved by Article 3 courts, not executive administrators dressed up as courts. They're all executive administrators. Where a controversy is of such character as to require the exercise of judicial power defined by Article 3, jurisdiction thereof can be conferred only on courts established in virtue of that article, and Congress is without power to vest that judicial power in any other judicial tribunal or, of course, in an executive officer or administrative or executive board, since they're incapable of receiving it. And there's lots of court cases that talk about it. That's a 1933 case, Williams versus United States. But there's Sidak versus Williams. Judicial functions cannot be delegated to non-judicial entities. Freytag versus Commissioner. Non-Article 3 courts must operate under judicial supervision. That's why they have these magistrate judges, because a magistrate judge is not a Article 3 judge. And so they have, their magistrate judges are working under the supervision of a so-called Article 3 judge, but they're not, none of them are Article 3 courts, and we'll see that here in a minute. Anyways, there's lots of court cases that talk about that. There's a whole list of them here. I'm not going to quote them all. Lynch versus Household Finance. Private property rights are subject to judicial review under Article 3. U.S. versus Lee. The exercise of judicial power is necessary to determine property rights. Missouri versus Jenkins. Judicial control of government actions involving private rights. Wilkie versus Robbins, judicial redress available for unlawful government actions involving property. That's why in my case they dismissed it, but they dismissed it without prejudice, which means I can bring it again. I just can change my arguments and bring it again. And they're basically telling these Montague County thieves that it was perfectly appropriate for me to bring that case, and that if I change my arguments, I can bring it again. In 1861, so southern states, so a little bit of history. In 1861, the southern states walked out of Congress. Congress failed to have a quorum. They couldn't conduct any business. On the 15th of April in 1861, their executive authority, Lincoln, a bar member, ordered Congress to reconvene at 12 Stat 1258. That was, by the way, Executive Order number 1. In 1871, Congress created a municipal corporation. This is municipal corporation being the operative word. Civil law, Roman civil law are convertible phrases meaning the same system of jurisprudence, that rule of action which every particular nation, commonwealth, or city has established peculiarly for itself, more properly called municipal law. Distinguish it from the law of nature and from international law. And that's Black's Law Dictionary, 4th edition. So, again, anytime they're talking about civil law, like as in rules of civil procedure, It's civil law, Roman civil law are convertible phrases being the same system of jurisprudence. And it's municipal law. Governments descend to the level of a mere private corporation and take on the characteristics of a mere private citizen where private corporate commercial paper and securities is concerned. For purposes of suit, such corporations and individuals are regarded as entities entirely separate from government. Two national governments exist, one to be maintained under the Constitution with all its restrictions, the other to be maintained by Congress outside and independently of that instrument. So think about it. The other one is the 1871 Corporation. That's dissenting opinion of Justice Marshall Harlan in the case Downs versus Bidwell. The 1871 Corporation is operating under the Commerce Clause. So they go and assault you with their Commerce Clause, and we'll talk about that some more. The Supreme Court ruled on a case that Lincoln failed to like, which I believe was Ex parte Milligan, but I'm not positive. Military tribunals cannot try civilians when civil courts are available. Lincoln sent troops to the Supreme Court, which resulted in Rule 45, and this Rule 45 exists today in the Supreme Court rules. All process of this court issues in the name of the President of the United States. So there's really no separation of powers, okay? The only separation of powers is if they want to. And there's no Article 3 courts. Remember I was saying about that? This is Balzac versus people of Puerto Rico. United States District Court is not a true United States court established under our Constitution, Article 3, to administer the judicial power of the United States, but was created by virtue of the sovereign congressional faculty granted under Article 4, Section 3, of it making all needful rules and regulations respecting the territory belonging to the United States. So Congress passed a code of law for the District of Columbia at 31 Stat 1189, March 3rd, 1901, which is now known as United States Code, which all courts, federal and state, operate under. There's no common law offenses against the United States, only those acts which Congress has forbidden with penalties for disobedience of its command or crimes. Derogation of common law equals inferior court of limited jurisdiction. Under Texas law, no act or omission is a crime unless made so by statute. So there's no common law. The legislature may create an offense and the same enactment provide exceptions to its application. None of the Texas codes are common law. Derogation of common law means an inferior court of limited jurisdiction. Assumpsit, quasi-contracts. This is talking about commercial. This is Article 3, okay? This is Commerce Clause stuff. Assumpsit, in an origin, an action of tort. Assumpsit was soon transformed to an action of contract, being afterwards a remedy where there was neither tort nor contract. Based at first only upon an express promise, it was afterwards supported upon an implied promise and even upon a fictitious promise. Introduced as a special manifestation of the action on the case, it soon acquired the dignity of a distinct form of action, which superseded debt, became concurrent with account, with case upon a bailment, a warranty, and bills of exchange, and competed with equity in the case of the essentially equitable quasi-contracts, going out of the principle. So all these words are commercial. Bills of exchange, warranty, bailment, account, okay, debt. Those are all commercial words. Growing out of the principle of unjust enrichment, surely it'd be hard to find a better illustration of the flexibility and power of the self-development of the common law. That's James Barr Ames, The History of Assumpsit, and 3 select essays on Anglo-American legal history. And that's Black's Law Dictionary, 8th edition, page 379. Okay, so that's Roman law. Okay, and the reason you know is because it's Article 3 stuff, and we'll hear about it here right here. Both in Roman and English law, there were certain obligations which were not in truth contractual, but which the law treats as if they were. They were contractual in law, but not in fact, being the subject matter of a fictitious expansion of the sphere of contract to cover obligations which do not in reality fall within it. And so quasi-contracts are Roman law. Quasi-constructive contracts are based solely upon the legal fiction of law, the minor estate. Penal, remember, penal bill of pains and penalties, right? Bill of pains and penalties. Gee, that sounds like a penal action. is an action on a penal statute, an action for recovery of penalty given by statute, where an action is founded entirely upon a statute and the only object of it is to recover a penalty or forfeiture. Such action is a penal action. The words penal and penalty in a strict primary sense denote a punishment, whether corporal or pecuniary. Okay, pecuniary, remember that word. We're going to be talking a little bit more about that here in a minute. Imposed and enforced by the crime for a state, by the state for a crime or offense against its laws. The noun penalty is defined forfeiture, or a forfeiture to be forfeited for non-compliance with an agreement. It's a contract. Remember the quasi-contract. The words forfeit and penalty are substantially synonymous. So if you nail them down about this in court, you need to know the nature and cause of this proceeding. They'll tell you it's quasi-criminal. Okay, it's a quasi-contract. And so really the solution is plead non-assumpsit. Okay, and I've heard of people that would plead non-assumpsit in one of these cases, and they make it go away. Okay, but you got to make sure and get it on the record. And they're just nothing but a bunch of thieves and pirates, and they'll walk all over you every chance they get. There's no justice. We're going to be talking about appealable issues tomorrow, because they are not even remotely interested in justice. They're just nothing but a bunch of thieves and pirates operating under Roman law. Anyways, don't get me going. You're going to get me going here. A penal action is one founded entirely on statute and brought with a sole object of recovering a penalty or forfeiture imposed as punishment for a specific offense, while a remedial action is one brought to obtain compensation or indemnity. A penal action is a civil suit brought for the recovery of a statutory forfeiture when inflicted as punishment for offense against the public. Such actions are civil actions, on the one hand, closely related to criminal prosecutions, on the other hand, private injuries in which the party aggrieved may, by statute, recover punitive damages. So they go and assault you and drag you into their court and force you to give a bond, and they call it a civil action, a civil suit. You know, like I said, they're just nothing but a bunch of thieves and pirates. The people need to wake up and get off their backside and follow after the traditions of our founding fathers. But I would never encourage anybody to do that. There is a remedy, and that's what we're going to talk about tomorrow, is how to build a case for appealable issues. It gets pretty bad, when the people have to rise up, resort to arms. But the founding fathers intended that we have our arms for that specific reason. Okay, I got to tell you, read the writings of Jefferson and such. The reason that we're supposed to have the right to keep and bear arms is because against tyranny and government. Okay, and there's tyranny and government all the time. They're populating the prisons, but I think that we've got some really good reason for hope, because Trump is a really good guy, and I think that he's working this. All of this stuff is going to change. There's going to be huge changes. They're already started, and so we need to support him. We need to let him know we're here to support him, and be there for him, and do our part to support him, and so then it won't resort to the other worst case scenario. And I hope it doesn't. I hope that we're able to, Trump is able to correct these issues, and I think he's gonna. Matter of fact, I'm positive of it. We're going to be talking about that tomorrow too. Pecuniary, remember pecuniary, okay? Pecuniary cause, such as arise either from the withholding of ecclesiastical dues or the doing or neglecting of some act related to the church, whereby some damage accrues to the plaintiff towards obtaining satisfaction for which he's permitted to institute a suit in the spiritual court. Did you know that that's a spiritual court? That's the Vatican. That's the Roman cult, folks. Such, for instance, are the subtracting and withholding of tithes from the parson or vicar, the non-payment of ecclesiastical dues to the clergy, as pensions, mortuaries, compositions, and the like. And that's Holthouse, A New Law Dictionary, 1850 edition, page 299. That's quoting Book 3 on Blackstone's Commentaries on the Laws of England. So this is something that's been going on for a long time. The United States shall guarantee to every state in this union a republican form of government. That's Article 4, Section 4. As one of we the people, the demandant is a state in this union because we the people are the state. And a state does not owe its origin to the government of the United States in the highest or any of its branches. It was in existence before it. It derives its authority from the same pure and sacred source as itself, the voluntary and deliberate choice of the people. And that's Chisholm versus Georgia, 1793. A Republican form of government fails to include the District of Columbia Commerce Clause under Article 1, Section 8, Clause 3, because of Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17. That's why that 1871 corporation is unconstitutional. One of the reasons. It's also a violation of Article 1 and Amendment, and we're going to talk about that tomorrow. But to exercise exclusive legislation in all cases whatsoever over such district not exceeding 10 miles square, as made by cession of particular states and the acceptance of Congress, become the seat of government of the United States. And that's Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17. And this Constitution and the laws of the United States which be made in pursuance thereof, and all treaties made or which shall be made under authority of the United States, shall be the supreme law of the land, and the judges in every state shall be bound thereby, anything in the constitutional laws of any state to the contrary notwithstanding. So I don't care what your state laws say, that anything in the constitutional laws of the state is notwithstanding anything in the laws of the state. The federal constitution is the supreme law of the land. We therefore decline to overrule the opinion of Chief Justice Marshall. We hold that the District of Columbia is not a state within Article 3 of the Constitution. In other words, cases between citizens of the district and those of the states. That's why my case was not allowed to have an Article 3 court. In other words, cases between citizens of the district and those of the states were not included in the catalog of controversies over which Congress could give jurisdiction to the federal courts by virtue of Article 3. And so that's why my case, because I'm not a U.S. citizen and I was dealing with U.S. citizens. In other words, Congress has exclusive legislative jurisdiction over citizens of Washington District of Columbia, and through their plenary power nationally, that's dictatorship, folks, covers those citizens even in one of the several states, as though the district expands for the purpose of regulating its citizens wherever they go throughout the states of the Union. That's National Mutual Insurance Company of the District of Columbia versus Tidewater Transfer Company, 1948. Plenary jurisdiction, a court's full and absolute power over the subject matter and the parties in the case. Plenary is full, complete, entire. Plenary is full, complete in the courts of admiralty and the English ecclesiastical courts, okay? So we're going back to these ecclesiastical courts again. Suits or causes or suits in respect of different courts of proceedings, which are termed plenary or summary. Plenary are full, formal suits, those in which the proceeding must be full and formal. The term summary is implied in those cases where the proceedings are more succinct and less formal. Plenary, a plenary power or plenary authority is a complete and absolute power to take action on a particular issue with no limitations. It's derived from the Latin term plenus. That's Wikipedia, but that's saying the same thing as Legal Information Institute, which is Cornell Law School. Complete power over a particular area with no limitations. The term is often used to describe the commerce power of Congress. Under the Commerce Clause, Article 1, Section 8, Clause 3, Congress is granted full power over interstate commerce. The court has found that states are not able to pass laws affecting interstate commerce without the permission of Congress. And this is what I'm bringing up in my appeal, okay, because that's unconstitutional. It's a violation of the First Amendment because it's the Roman cult. They're bringing the Roman cult onto the land of America in violation of the First Amendment. Then Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion. I'll be right back, and then we'll continue.
Sounds good.
How many in the chat? How many in the
Oh,
room?
Brian made it in. Thank you so much for your help, by the way.
Awesome, Brian. Glad to hear it.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,
There's 14.
14. Thank you for the assistance. Appreciate that.
Been missing
Everything-
you, Ken.
Everything's foggy over on this end. But I got in the room.
I hear you.
Hallelujah. I wonder if he's going to use the word impecuniosity.
He said that they were going to talk about it in tomorrow's conference.
When is that? What time is it open, or is it open to whoever wants to attend?
Yeah, you can get, he's going to try and stream it through his YouTube channel. So he's setting up a prescription-based thing that you'll be able to see it being streamed, apparently. So, but
Yeah.
new cameras happening.
Yeah, that'll be tomorrow, and it'll be live streamed. But some of them I'll make them private or member only. But I think I'll do that after I'm done live streaming it. So if you watch the live stream, you'll probably get access to it, and then I'll make it member only afterwards. Let's see here. I'm looking at the comments on YouTube. Okay, well, let's keep going here. Does anybody have any questions before we get going? Okay. So regulations are for property of the government. So if you're subject to the regulations, you are owned. This is Canada, Government Corporation Operation Act of Canada. Every corporation is, for all its purposes, an agency of the bitch or the son of a bitch. Section 2 definitions of this act is Canadian Ownership and Control Determination Act. In this act, owned means subject to the regulations. And this is the same as Article 4, Section 3, Clause 2 of the U.S. Constitution. The Congress shall have power to dispose of and make all needful rules and regulations respecting the territory or other property belonging to the United States. So if you're subject to the regulations, you're property. A U.S. citizen is other property belonging to the United States. This is McCullough versus Maryland. All subjects over which the sovereign power of the state extends are objects of taxation, but those over which it does not extend are upon the soundest principles exempt from taxation. This proposition may almost be pronounced self-evident. May almost be pronounced obvious, right? The sovereignty of a state extends to everything which exists by its own authority or is introduced by its permission. But does it extend to those means which are employed by Congress to carry into execution powers conferred on that body by the people of the United States? We think it demonstrable that it does not. Those powers are not given by the people of a single state. They're given by the people of the United States to a government whose laws made in pursuance of the Constitution are declared to be supreme. Consequently, the people of a single state cannot confer a sovereignty which will extend over them. Nor does the conclusion by any means suppose the superiority of the judicial to the legislative power. It only supposes that the power of the people is superior to both. The sovereignty of the United States resides in the people, and the Congress cannot invoke the sovereignty of the people to override their will as declared in the Constitution. Individual means a natural person. This is the minor estate again. Minor means an individual under the age of 18 years. The term minor is also used to refer to an individual who's attained the age of 18 years but has not yet taken control of the securities contained in his or her minor account. Remember, that's the regulations, 31 CFR 363.6. A court means a court of law with jurisdiction over the parties and the subject matter. So if they don't have it over the subject matter, then it's not a court. Entity means any owner of a Treasury direct account that is not an individual. Entity is a sole proprietorship, partnership, corporation, limited liability company, professional limited liability company, trust, the estate of a decedent, or the estate of a living person, such as an incompetent or a minor. Okay, so that puts you under the Commerce Clause. And it was brought into the United States with the Code of Law. This is taken from, it actually comes from the Decay V Act of 1666. We're going to go over that in a minute. But it was brought into America with the Code of Law for the District of Columbia, the legal estate to be in the Decay use. At 31 Stat 1432, a use is short for usufruct, which is Roman law. But so what happens is when they go and when Congress passes this law, then the courts have to presume it's correct if you're not disputing it. And I didn't dispute it until the very end because I was trying to get them to go along, but they didn't. And so when the state forms a constitution which is approved by Congress, it's stopped to deny its validity. The action of the Congress cannot be required into, for the judicial is bound to follow the action of the political department. So think about it. What they're saying is there's no separation of powers, right? That's what they're saying. There's no separation of powers. And so the judicial is bound to follow the action of the political department. When push comes to shove, there's no separation of powers. And this is old. Luther versus Borden. This is before the Civil War. And this is where it's talked about in Tomlin's Law Dictionary, 1835 edition, volume 2, under the definition of mort main. If you go through that Tomlin's Law Dictionary, the pages aren't numbered. So the only way you can look this up is and the definition of mort main is about 4 pages. Anyways, yet still it was found difficult to set bounds to ecclesiastical ingenuity. That's the Roman cult, folks. For when they were driven out of all their former holds, they devised a new method of conveyance by which lands were granted not to themselves directly, but to nominal fiefs to the use of the religious houses. Use meaning usufruct. How convenient. Thus distinguishing between the possession and the use. Receiving the actual profits, this is all in Roman law. While a season of the land remained in the nominal fief, who was held by the courts of direct equity, then under the direction of the clergy. That's the Roman cult, folks. How convenient, they get to decide, too. To be bound in conscience to account to assess decay use for the rents and emoluments of the estate. That's taxes, folks. And it is to these inventions that our practitioners are indebted for the introduction of uses and trusts, the foundation of modern conveyancing. And so everything is in trust law, okay? And so there's ways of dealing with it. I try not to go there, but if necessary, I can go there. We'll go there, and I'll, do my best to break it off in your backside. Don't get me going. You're going to get me going. Anyways, it goes back to the Decay V Act of 1666 that precipitated the War of Independence. This is the same stuff that went on that caused the War of Independence. Minor means an individual under the age of 18 years. The term minor is also used to refer to an individual who's attained the age of 18 years but has not yet taken control of the securities contained in his or her minor account. So, this is telling you some things. It's telling you there's a minor estate. It's telling you the minor estate was created at birth by fraud, because they didn't tell you about it, did they? There is a Treasury direct account associated with the minor estate, and there are securities in it. And it's all fraudulent, and it's slaveries because they're converting you into a fictitious entity, which is property under the Commerce Clause. So it's slavery. If you try to take control of any securities, you're submitting yourself to regulations, which is a contract. If you're subject to regulations, then you're property of the government. A slave is property. You're volunteering for slavery. You're literally in a contract with the devil. And you fail to have clean hands. If you participate in the fraud, you cannot claim fraud. And one of the equities one of the maxims of equity is the clean hands doctrine. The clean hands doctrine, a principle that a party cannot seek equitable relief or assert an equitable defense if that party has violated an equitable principle, such as good faith. Such a party is described as having unclean hands. For example, Section 8 of the Uniform Child Custody Jurisdiction Act contains an unclean hands provision that forbids a court from exercising jurisdiction in a child custody suit in certain situations, as when one party has wrongfully removed a child from another state, has improperly retained custody of a child after visitation, or has wrongfully removed a child from the person with custody. Okay, this is all trust law they're talking about here, Roman law. The clean hands doctrine involved from the discretionary nature of equitable relief in English courts of equity, such as chancery. Okay, so that's chancery is equity, the court of equity. They used to have courts of equity in the U.S. There used to be a Texas court of chancery and a New Jersey court of chancery. Equitable defense. A defense formerly available only in the court of equity, but now maintainable in a court of law. Examples include mistake, fraud, illegality, failure of consideration, forum non-convenience, laches, estoppel, and unclean hands. Black's Law Dictionary, 8th edition. Definitions. As used in this section, the term United States business means a United States citizen. Okay, so United States citizen is a United States business. It's a corporation. A corporation, partnership, or other association created under the laws of the United States or of any state, including the District of Columbia or any Commonwealth territory or possession of the United States, or a foreign corporation. And that's Public Law 100-418, 102 Stat 1344, August 23rd, 1988. My opinion is, and long has been, that the mayor and aldermen of a city corporation, or the president directors of a bank, or the president directors of a railroad company, or other similar corporations are the true parties that sue and are sued as trustees and representatives of the constantly changing stockholders. A corporation, therefore, being not a natural person, but mere creature of the mind, invisible and intangible, cannot be a citizen of a state or of the United States, and cannot fall within the terms of the power of the above-mentioned article, and can therefore neither plead nor be impleaded in the courts of the United States. Okay, so what they're saying is dissimilar things ought not to be joined. In other words, a fiction cannot sue a fiction, and a fiction cannot sue a living man. I should say, a fiction can sue a fiction, a man can sue a man, but they can't mix. Okay, in other words, a fiction can't sue a man, and a man can't sue a fiction. So if you're suing a fiction, then you're doing it as a fiction, as the minor estate. Securities. A birth certificate is not a security. The Treasury website says there's no birth certificate security. We know there is a minor estate created by birth. We know there is a Treasury direct account for the minor estate, and we know there are securities in it that were created by the Hospitaliers. Okay, the Hospitaliers are Satanists. Colonel Edward Mandel House, in a private meeting with Woodrow Wilson. Very soon, every American will be required to register their biological property in a national system designed to keep track of the people that will operate under the ancient system of pledging. By such methodology, we can compel people to submit to our agenda, which will affect our security as a chargeback for our fiat paper currency. Every American will be forced to register or suffer not being able to work and earn a living. They will be our chattel, and we will hold the security interest over them forever by operation of the law merchant under the scheme of secured transactions. Americans, by unknowingly or unwittingly delivering the bills of lading to us, will be rendered bankrupt and insolvent forever to remain economic slaves through taxation secured by their pledges. They will be stripped of their rights and given a commercial value designed to make us a profit, and they will be none the wiser, for not one man in a million could ever figure out our plans, and if by accident one or two would figure it out, we have at our arsenal plausibility and liability. And after all, this is the only logical way to fund government, by floating liens and debt into the registrants in the form of benefits and privileges. This will inevitably reap to us huge profits beyond our wildest expectations and leave every American a contributor to this fraud, which we will call social insurance. Without realizing it, every American will insure us for any loss we may incur, and in this manner, every American will unknowingly be our servant, however begrudgingly. The people will become helpless and without any hope for their redemption, and we will employ the high office of the president of our dummy corporation to foment this plot against America. Jefferson said, I believe the banking institutions are more dangerous to our liberties than standing armies. If the American people were to allow private banks to control the issue of their currency, first by inflation, then by deflation, the banks and corporations that will grow up around the banks will deprive the people of all property until their children wake up homeless on the continent their fathers conquered. The issuing power should be taken from the banks and restored to the people to whom it properly belongs. Look at all the homeless people nowadays. Is that a surprise? So, Hague Convention on Private International Law. There's a convention concerning the international administration of the estates of deceased persons, concluded on 2nd of October 1973. Article 22 says any person who pays or delivers property to the holder of the certificate drawn up and, where necessary, recognized in accordance with this convention, shall be discharged until it is proved that the person acted in bad faith. Security. This is the Federal Tax Lien Act of 1966. Security interest means any interest in property acquired by contract for the purpose of securing payment or performance or an obligation or indemnifying against loss or liability. A security interest exists at any time. A motor vehicle means a self-propelled vehicle which is registered for highway use under the laws of the state or foreign country. The term security means any bond, debenture, note, or certificate or other evidence of indebtedness issued by a corporation or a government or a political subdivision thereof with interest coupons or registered forms, share of stock, voting trust certificate, or any certificate of interest or participation in, certificate of deposit or receipt for, temporary or interim certificate for or warrant, or the right to subscribe to or purchase any of the foregoing negotiable instrument or money. And that's the Federal Tax Lien Act of 1966, Public Law 89-719 at 80 Stat 1130 to 1131. This is a security is a legal representation in a specific entity. It serves as a financial instrument that embodies various rights and obligations, while some individuals hold the misconception that a security must be actively traded on the market to qualify as such. The legal definition of a security is more comprehensive and multifaceted, as we've seen in the crypto as a security argument, as to whether they are financial securities. The definition bears substantial importance. Our financial securities, as it dictates whether the federal and state security laws are applicable. And it's recently been ruled by the courts that Ripple is not a security. So it makes you wonder about, there's a lot of them that might not be securities. In essence, the term security is defined broadly and extends beyond the confines of traditional stock and bond markets, where many different types of securities. It encompasses a wide spectrum of instruments, including but not limited to stocks, bonds, derivatives, options, investment contracts. These investments are characterized by their role in representing ownership, debt, and participation in various investment endeavors, and they can take on diverse forms. So a financial instrument, it's fake money. Only gold or silver coin is real money. At common law, only gold or silver were legal tender. Silver is mine, the gold is mine, saith the Lord of hosts. The term dollars likewise is incorrect, which according to the constitutional definition are monetary units used in exchange backed by gold and silver. Our present-day fiat issues are supported by more printed paper of the same, therefore they are correctly termed Federal Reserve notes, not dollars. And I will come near to you in judgment. I'll be a swift witness against the sorcerers, against the adulterers, against the false swearers, against those that oppress the hireling and his wages, the widow and the fatherless, and to turn aside the stranger from his right, and fear not me, saith the Lord of hosts. But the fearful and unbelieving and abominable and murderers and whoremongers and sorcerers and idolaters and all liars shall have their part in the lake which burneth with fire and brimstone, which is the second death. You know, there's a joke that I like to say. It's a it's a it's a lawyer joke or an engineer joke, depends on how you wanna call it. But anyways, so there's an engineer that died and went to heaven, and he got to the pearly gates, and they said, "Oh, you can't come here. You got to go to the other place." So he went down to hell, and he was down there designing and building escalators and air conditioners and doing all sorts of stuff. And one day, God gets on the phone with the devil and says, "So how's it going?" And the devil says, "Well, we got an engineer down here, and he's building escalators and air conditioners and all sorts of stuff." And God says, "He's not supposed to be down there. You sent him up here." And the devil says, "Nope, we're not going to do it." And they get going back and forth and send him up here. The devil says, "Nope, forget it." And God says, "I'll sue." And the devil laughs uproariously, and he says, "Where are you going to find a lawyer?" So all the lawyers are in hell. Anyways, don't get me going. Endless
You mean a
wars.
liar.
Endless
You
wars.
mean a liar.
That's right. He's a liar. Endless wars. According to Britannica.com, there were 135,000 U.S. casualties when we invaded Normandy in the Second World War. 65,000 United Kingdom casualties, 18,000 Canadian casualties, 12,200 French casualties, 550,000 total casualties both sides. So this is taken from a website that talks about that. And so think about it. If there's all those minor estate accounts, so 550,000. If there was say $1 million in each one, then that would be $5.5 trillion. I think 550,000 times a million. So it's a lot, and so. United States at the end of World War II is one of the most heavily indebted nations on the planet. And within a few years, it was one of the most least indebted nations on the planet because all those states paid off the war debt. That's all those minor estates. So they want you dead. Taxes are not raised to carry on wars. Wars are raised to carry on taxes. The war is not meant to be won. It's meant to be continuous. They want you dead. After World War II, the United States is one of the most heavily indebted nations on the planet. By the 50s, the U.S. was one of the least most indebted nations on the planet. They let Hitler escape because he facilitated their satanic blood sacrifice and make sure the banksters got paid. They want you dead so they can pillage all the fake money in the Treasury Direct account with the Treasury, the International Monetary Fund. They want you to exercise your right to resist their unlawful arrest so they can have an excuse to murder you, just like the pigs did to the guy in Utah last spring. Actually, it was a year ago last spring. Yeah, it's about 2 years ago now. That had homemade plates on his car. So are you subject to regulations? Some people say there's millions of dollars, maybe billions of dollars in that account. People are saying change your status, affidavit of rescission. Some people claim to have received a black cat credit card with unlimited credit. Status, that's Roman law, okay? Compare a state. A corporation has no status as a citizen outside the jurisdiction where it was created. A corporation's a citizen's a corporation. If they're assaulting you with their U.S. citizen slave, then you're in the District of Columbia. Law of status, the category of law dealing with personal, non-proprietary rights, whether in rem or in personam. It's one of three departments in which the civil law is divided. Okay, remember, civil law, Roman civil law are convertible phrases. Same as municipal law. Okay, so that's Roman law is what it is. Law-abiding citizens, they want you dead. The brave soldiers are there just doing their job. A bunch of law-abiding citizens. Those who make their fortunes from you being sick are the same people who tell you what will make you well. Oh, some more law-abiding citizens. Oh, some more law-abiding citizens. Oh, some more law-abiding citizens. My contact information is sovereigntyinternational.wordpress.com. My website is sovereigntyinternational.fyi. My email address is engineerwin@yahoo.com. My YouTube profile is Sovereign Living. My Facebook community page I deleted it due to censorship on the part of Facebook. My private group called Sovereignty International is being deleted. Freelist, I've got a private group called Freelist on freelist.org called Administrating Your Public Servants, and I got a Google private group called Administrating Your Public Servants. So that's at googlegroups.com. Anyways, follow me on Steemit at Sovereignty International. HowTube, Sovereignty International is my exclusive videos. Rumble is Sovereignty International. Truth Social is Engineer Win. And I've got a group on Truth Social called Sovereignty International. And I deleted my X profile because they were censoring me. Story affirmed the right of self-defense by persons held illegally in his own writings. He had admitted that a situation could arise in which the checks and balances principle ceased to work and the various branches of government concurred in a gross usurpation. There would be no usual remedy by changing the law or passing an amendment to the Constitution should the opposed property be a minority. Story concluded, if there was any remedy at all, it's a remedy never provided for by human institutions. That was the ultimate right of all human beings in extreme cases to resist oppression and to apply force against ruinous injustice. From Mutiny on the Amistad by Howard Jones, Oxford University Press, 1987, account of the reading of the decision in the case Justice Joseph Story of the Supreme Court. So they're talking about the Amistad. You have a right to resist an unlawful arrest with lethal force if necessary. The people took over a slave ship and killed all their captors except for one on a slave ship, and they demanded that that one survivor take them back to Africa because they didn't know how to sail. They sailed in circles off the coast of Virginia until the U.S. Navy found them, and they were brought back and charged with murder. It went all the way to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court dismissed the murder charges and ordered them sent back to Africa. Endless wars are to get you into their killing fields so their banksters can collect the fake money in the Treasury direct account, but you can fight for your bankrupt corporation. They intend to assault you with the minor estate, to assault you with the Commerce Clause, with their plenary dictatorship jurisdiction of the District of Columbia. They routinely unlawful arrest you with the objective of you exercising your right to resist their unlawful arrest so their military police, their pigs, can have an excuse to murder you. They're engaging in endless wars to get you in their killing fields. Either way, your bankster handlers can pillage all the fake money in the Treasury direct accounts. That's why they don't want to talk to me. I can tell you that for sure because I accuse them of attempted murder. I get a police report and I file attempted murder charges against them because I have a right to resist an unlawful arrest with lethal force if necessary. They screen out intelligent people in the hiring process for their law enforcement officers. Jordan versus City of New London, U.S. Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit case number 99-9188. Robert Jordan had a master's degree and scored too high in their test. He was too intelligent. They don't want anybody with any brains doing that job. This is the website. A man whose bid to become a police officer was rejected after he scored too high in the intelligence test has lost his appeal in a federal lawsuit against the city. Two enemies of the people are criminals and government. Did you know that? Government is your enemy. So let us tie down the second with the chains of the Constitution so the second will not become the legalized version of the first. And that's exactly what's happened. You see it in the courts every day. Two enemies of the people, criminals and government. I believe the banking institutions are more dangerous to our liberties than standing armies. If the American people ever allow the private banks to control the issue of their currency, first by inflation, then by deflation, the banks and the corporations that will rise up around them, around the banks, will deprive the people of all property until their children wake up homeless on the continent their fathers conquered. The issuing power should be taken from the banks and restored to the people to whom it properly belongs. I think we have a guy similar to Jefferson in the White House right now. In doing this, I shall have occasion incidentally to evince how true it is that states and governments were made for man, and at the same time how true it is that his creatures and servants are first deceived, next vilified, and at last oppressed their master and maker. A state like a merchant makes a contract. A dishonest state like a dishonest merchant willfully refuses to discharge it. So I'm just going to look on YouTube and see what kind of comments are coming right now. Yeah, they were playing games on X, that's for sure. Statutes have been passed extending courts of admiralty and vice admiralty far beyond their ancient limits for depriving us of the accustomed and estimable privilege of trial by jury in cases affecting both life and property, to supersede the courts of common law and instead thereof the publish and order the use and exercise of law martial. So martial law supersedes common law. So that's what I see people do all the time, is they mix their law. And you cannot. It's either you argue martial law or you argue common law. You cannot mix your law. And if you look at Title 1, Section 1, it says that in compos mentis is insane, which means that if you're mixing your law, you're incompetent, you don't know what you're doing. And the judge, if he's a good judge, he'll tell you, he'll give you a hint. And I've seen judges do it. They say, you're crazy. You don't know what you're talking about. I'm going to send you to a shrink. And he's telling them. Some judges will sit there and play stupid and not say a word and sell you into slavery and let you figure out what happened. For altering fundamentally the form of government established by charter, we saw the misery to which does despotism, that's dictatorship, that's plenary. Remember, plenary, we're talking about plenary, would reduce us. The sovereignty of the United States resides in the people, and Congress cannot invoke the sovereignty of the people or override their will as declared by the Constitution. The state citizen is immune from any and all government attacks and procedure, absent contract. Every man is independent of all laws except those prescribed by nature. He is not bound by any institutions formed by his fellow men without his consent. The power which is derived cannot be greater than that from which it is derived. That's a maxim of law. Nor does the conclusion by any means suppose a superiority of the judicial to the legislative power. It only supposes the power of the people is superior to both. They collect royalties. These bought and paid for whores are busy collecting royalties. For example, they issue a warrant of arrest. They're collecting a royalty off that stuff. Issuing a commitment, that's when they sell you into slavery, okay? A commitment, an order of commitment is an order to put you in jail. Okay, they get a royalty off of that. Drawing a bond. Transcripts? Why do you think those transcripts are hundreds of dollars? That fucking bought and paid for whore is getting a royalty for that. Don't get me going. What's called proclaiming martial law is no law at all, but merely for the sake of public safety in circumstances of great emergency, setting aside all law and acting under military power. A civilian. A civilian, and let's look at the number 3 definition, a scholar in civil or Roman law, okay? So Roman law, that's all coming from Roman law. Remember, civil law, Roman civil law and Roman law are convertible phrases, all talking about municipal law. So a civilian, so this is all part of the martial law, okay? They're calling you a civilian because you're a person not serving in the military, but it's all Roman law. That's what we're going to be talking about tomorrow. That's why they have to pass statutes for common law offenses. That's why all statutes are edicts under martial law. We can't even begin to count the number of times judges, lawyers, and statesmen have said there isn't any common law anymore. It's been replaced by statutes. They would be more truthful if they said there isn't any common law anymore. It's been replaced by martial law. And that's Judge H. Ellett of the Utah Supreme Court in the case in his book, The Non-Ratification of the 14th Amendment, in the case Dyett versus Turner. Under a military dictatorship, there is no law, which is they're required to pass statutes for common law crimes like murder and assault. This creates civil law, which creates a democracy. Under a military dictatorship, you have a democracy. Democracy is international law. Always challenge jurisdiction. I have exclusive content available on howto.com. It's $9.99 a month for the videos plus unlimited email consultations, but I'm not a liar. Well, I meant an attorney. No, I meant a liar. I can tell you what I would do under the circumstances and where to find the forums. The only power these New World Order Satanists have over us is through fraud and deception, and my agenda is to expose it for all our benefit, but I cannot fight all the battles. Some of my exclusive content is Arlington Private Information Share, Land Deed Training, Estoppel Certificates Training, Foreclosure Estoppel Certificates Training, Corporate Denial Training, Toll Roads Notice and Demand Training, Invoice Training, Notice of Void Judgment Training, Revocation of Signature Training, Third-Party Witness Training, Federal Habeas Corpus Training. There's also revocation of voter registration training, criminal complaint training. There's about 3 videos of that. Lawsuit training, there's 1, and I need to make some more. Other training requests, I'm open for ideas on what to put up there, but having said that, it's got to be something that is within the scope of what my channel is about, and it's something I haven't already done. There's also Northeast Private Information Share videos are up there. There's a petition for writ of mandamus. I need to do that petition for writ of mandamus. There's all the videos taken down by YouTube. There's first views of the new uploads. There's probably about 150 videos up there on the HowTube. But you have to understand that that there's actually 2 places where you can look at the exclusive videos. I still have the website. There's people that are on the website, but there's not near that many videos on the website that are available for the exclusive videos. There's like, maybe 25 or 30 videos. If you go to HowTube, it's $9.99 a month, and there's right now about 150, and there's going to be more. I'm uploading them there regularly. Or there's also the on YouTube, now that I got monetized on YouTube, there's also going to be memberships that are available. There's a $4.99 membership for that's basically a basic membership. And there's going to be a bunch of videos. I'm moving a bunch of videos over to that. And then there's going to be those same videos, plus there's going to be, for $19.99, you get a free admission to the Northeast Private Information Share. That's twice a year in New Jersey. And it comes with a place to stay while you're here. And that's all for $19.99 a month. And so if you want to come, now you got to use it. You got to use it, use it or lose it sort of thing. I got to put that down on there. Anyways, all forms, files, and other instructions are available for free, linked on my videos and on my website. All exclusive content will be on howtube.com, and you can buy a subscription there. And it's HowTube at Sovereignty International. Now, HowTube, I have no control over the billing. Okay, I got to tell you, don't send me $10 and expect me to sign you up. I can't do it. It's impossible. You have to go through HowTube, and then HowTube, pays me a piece of the action, and well, they take their cut and they handle it. They handle it all. I have no control, and you have to do it the way they want to do it. There's no cryptos or none of that stuff, as far as I know. It's however they do it. You got to just, HowTube is the only way that you can do it. If you're going to be on HowTube, you got to follow their rules. And the said Supreme Court shall divide the said district into 10 subdistricts. This is zip codes, and prescribe the place in each subdistrict where the justice thereof shall have his office for the transaction of business, and any change of the boundaries of such district and locations of offices and justices therein from time to time. That brings in the 10 federal regions. Remember? And this is Code of Law for the District of Columbia, Section 3 at 31 Stat 1190. All corporations are in a zip code. All government offices are in a zip code. The United States Postal Service is a corporation domiciled in the District of Columbia. Should a suit be brought against any party or corporation in any district in which he or it does not reside or hold business, and a plea to the jurisdiction on this account be filed by said defendant, the party or corporation interposing such plea shall disclose under oath the district in which he or it should have been sued. And that's, again, the Code of Law for the District of Columbia. And there's a whole, at 31 Stat 1280, there's a whole chapter called corporations. to regulate commerce with foreign nations among the several states and with the Indian tribes. That's Article 1, Section 8, Clause 3. When you incorporate into the government. Everything subject to regulations is government property. A corporation is a franchise from the government. My book, Trump, is now available. Trump, a true American or not, patriot or not. Mike Blackwell asked me to write the book, and it took me about 6 weeks to write it, because all I did is I took a lawsuit and manipulated it and turned it into the book. So it's 99% provable facts. I use court cases, law dictionary definitions, international treaties to prove everything. I'm actually thinking about doing a revision, but I haven't even started on it yet. Mike has asked me to, but I haven't even started on it yet. I don't know how long it'll take to get it ready to go. I got to talk to Mike and see, how he's the publisher. Anyways, so he hired a company to help us publish the book, and they wrote this on the back of the book, and I think they kind of nailed it. So it says, in Trump, a true American patriot or not, Mike Fern and Mike Blackwell reveal the depths of corruption, deceit, and manipulation infesting our political system for hundreds of years, regardless of political affiliation. Read the hard evidence that exposes how our elected officials sold Americans into slavery. Understand the Founding Fathers' true intent when they framed our Republican form of government. Discover the influence of the satanic Roman cult on our politicians and political system. Does Donald Trump want to transfer power back to we the people? And Trump, you will see the great battle that is upon us. And I think they nailed it there, I'll tell you. That's true. They nailed it. You can order the book from Amazon or my website. I prefer you order from my website. If you order from my website, you'll get an autographed book or a signed book, whichever way you want to call it. You want to know the origins of the deep state, who's behind it? It's in the book. Do you want to know why it's called the Trump administration? You want to know what an administration is? Do you want to know how Trump came to be president? Do you want to know who owns Congress? You know Congress is owned, right? And Trump was invited. They say that 200 generals invited Trump to become president. There's actually a YouTube video with Jerome Corsi. Jerome Corsi is a guy that lives up in the Northeast. He's got a PhD in political science from Harvard, and he's written a bunch of books, and he's got a website and a YouTube channel. Anyways, there's a YouTube video where Jerome Corsi says that in 2015, 5 generals came to see him, and they said they were going to overthrow Obama. And he said, well, you can do that if you want, but you might want to go talk to Donald Trump first. And 3 months later, he gets a phone call. They decided not to overthrow Obama because Donald Trump had agreed for him for president. So you want to know why they're called law enforcement officers? I've got this book called the Law of War Manual, United States Law of War Manual. It's about like 4 inches thick. And in there, it's got all sorts about law enforcement officers. They're enforcing the martial law. Do you know how you have become a slave? If you're forced to work for the government for nothing, then that's the definition of slavery. Do you want to know what the root cause of the War of Independence was? It's the same thing that's going on today. It's in the book. Do you want to know why every president goes to visit the Pope on their first international trip? It's in the book. So I already told you about Mike Blackwell and Jerome Corsi and the 95% provable facts. It's my opinion. Okay, there's mostly provable facts, but there is some opinion. My opinion is that most billionaires get told they're going to go along with the program or they're going to turn up dead. There's actually Trump. I think Trump was approached, and there was a helicopter crash in 1984, and he lost 3 executives. The thing is that I started working on helicopters in 1976, so I know a little bit about helicopters as a mechanic. I worked on helicopters as a mechanic, and so I've had all sorts of training on those things and stuff. Anyways, they said that those helicopters crashed because the blades come off. And blades don't come off of helicopters. Helicopters crash for a lot of reasons, but not because the blades fall off. I can't believe that, but that's what they said. And so what happened is they crash they have a tail rotor drive shaft, and those bearings freeze up, and so then the tail rotor doesn't work, and the helicopter will start spinning, and it'll auger in. And So the there's a lot of reasons why helicopters crash. I used to have to do a daily inspection on the helicopters, and a pre-flight inspection, and so one of the things that we were supposed to look for is there's temperature sensitive paint on those tail rotor drive shaft bearings, and you got to look at that stuff and make sure it's not discolored, because if it is, then that airplane ain't going anywhere until you change those bearings. But there's a bunch of reasons why helicopters crash. They have chip lights in the transmissions and the gearboxes. And so if you get a chip light, the pilot wants to get back to the ground as quick as possible, because that's the only thing that's keeping them in the air. Anyways, there's a bunch of reasons why helicopters crash. And so anyways, that helicopter crashed because the blades came off. And so that tells me it was probably sabotage. And Trump lost 3 executives by doing it. So I think he knows the threats that he's being subjected to. Howard Hughes, well, there's actually a David Wilcock video where he talks about Howard Hughes, and he says that after World War II, Howard Hughes got blackballed and he couldn't get any defense contracts. We all know that Howard Hughes is a big industrialist, and he was hiding out, afraid that he's going to get poisoned, and his fingernails were all really long, and he was
Right here in Vancouver, right at the Bay Shore Hotel.
Is that right?
Yeah, you know what the connection is with Howard is that he was the guy that put the blimp in the air, right? So they didn't like him for that reason. But
That's
I
interesting.
know that
I never knew that.
yeah, that
I
was
heard
his
I heard that he
claim to
bought
fame.
I heard that he bought the Sands Hotel in Vegas, and he wanted to watch his own movies, and they wouldn't just play his movies he wanted, so he bought the hotel, and then he could watch the movies he wanted to watch. He bought he stayed up in the top floor, and so he could have security and didn't have anybody messing with him on the top floor. And I think it was the Sands Hotel in Vegas. But I didn't know about Vancouver, but it wouldn't surprise me. There was one story when I was in high school, is people said that he was in Lethbridge, where I went to high school in Raymond, about 20 miles south of Lethbridge. And they said there was stories about Howard Hughes being in Lethbridge one time. So anyways, who knows? So the point, though, is that the story is that Howard Hughes had actually, when he got blackballed, he got some young ladies to go and sleep with the military industrial complex types to find out why he couldn't get defense contracts. And that's when he found out that they were going to do what they're planning on doing now. They want to have a global plantation, and with a fake pandemic and wars and all sorts of stuff. And so he actually had procedures set up to defeat it all. And Kennedy was actually implementing some of that stuff. And Kennedy circulated $6 billion worth of U.S. Treasury notes. And first thing that Johnson did when after the Kennedy assassination is Johnson recalled that $6 billion worth of U.S. Treasury notes. That was like telling the bankers, you're done. You get lost. You're done here. And so Kennedy was his own man, and they didn't like it, and so they killed him, and they killed his brother, and they killed all sorts of other people, Martin Luther King, and so I think Howard Hughes, the reason he was hiding out is because he was afraid he was next. And so anyways, so that's again, my opinion. Rumors. In reality, they're not after me, they're after you. I'm just in a way. Well, thank you, Donald Trump. What he's doing for us is absolutely priceless, and he deserves, I really think he's going to turn out to be another Jefferson. Anyways, this is the same stuff that caused the War of Independence. He's combined with others to subject us to a jurisdiction foreign to our Constitution, unacknowledged by our laws, giving his assent to their acts of pretended legislation. Pretended legislation is color of law, something that looks like law, but it isn't. For transporting us beyond seas to be tried for pretended offenses. That's exactly the Decay Act they're talking about there. For imposing taxes on us without our consent. That's the Decay Act. for depriving us in many cases of the benefits of trial by jury, for taking away our charters, abolishing our most valuable laws, altering fundamentally the forms of our government. This is all talking about the decay and trust law, okay? Roman law. They're bringing Roman law here. He's abdicated government here by declaring us out of his protection and waging war against us. And that's exactly every court case. When you're in court, it's warfare, and you got to treat it that way. You're under attack, and you are the enemy, and they are the enemy, and you got to treat it that way. They're not your friend, and you got to treat it that way, or they're going to sell you into slavery. Tell you right now. Penitentiary. This is Roman law. Has meant a penitent, an ordainer of penances, a place for penitence, and that's penitentiary. It's Roman law. Anderson's Law Dictionary, 1889 edition. Penance is a punishment imposed for a crime by the ecclesiastical laws. It's an acknowledgement of the offense. Penance may be changed into a sum of money to be applied by pious uses called commuting. So Trump commuted Roger Stone's sentence. He paid off the Roman cult. That's what he did. Think about it. United States shall guarantee to every state in this union a Republican form of government, a well-regulated militia, being necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to bear arms shall not be infringed. And so necessary, that's the only place in the Constitution the word necessary is used. Check out my other videos, Bankster Thieves playlist, Roman Cult playlist, Bankrupt Corporate So-Called Governments, Bar Members 1 through, this is actually 9, so we might as well go 9 here now. This one's number 9. Do not volunteer, do yourself how not to volunteer for the selective service in the draft, the killing fields, martial laws here, do yourself no income tax, free mail 1 and 2, and this is going to be 34 now after this weekend. Kangaroo Courts 1 through 34. Canada Border Pigs playlist. Bar members and their satanic connections playlist. Sad will be the day when the American people forget their traditions and their history and no longer remember that the country they love, the institutions they cherish, and the freedom they hope to preserve were born from the throes of armed resistance, tyranny, and nursed in the rugged arms of fearless men. Well said. Roger Sherman, signer of the Declaration of Independence. Resistance to tyrants is obedience to God, therefore non-resistance to tyrants is obedience to Satan. Well said. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Don't forget to follow me on Steemit at Sovereignty International. Don't forget to like this video. On YouTube, don't forget to click the bell next to the subscribe button so you're notified when there's a new upload. On Steemit, don't forget to vote and make your comments. Excuse me. That's the front page of the channel. The subscribe button's already clicked. The arrow's pointing at the bell. And so you got to click the bell so that you get notified of uploads. And there'll be several selections there. They've been telling people for decades that we're in a democracy. Do you think it's an accident? Anybody that calls a democracy is engaged in treason, in my opinion. Give me liberty or give me death was a phrase coined by Patrick Henry after witnessing a man flogged to death for refusing to take a license. And a license is a contract. So it's forced contracts. That's the minor estate again, right? There's a right given by some competent authority to do an act which without such authority would be illegal. The instrument of writing which secures this right is also called a license. This is all Roman law. A license is express or implied. An express license is one in which direct terms authorizes the performance of a certain act. As a license to keep a tavern by public authority, an implied license is one, though not expressly given, may be presumed from the acts of the party having the right to give it. Okay, so think about that. That sounds like a filing fee. When you pay the filing fee, they let your case proceed in the court. It's a license fee. Bouvier's Law Dictionary, 1843 edition, volume 2, page 53. The corrupt Star Chamber courts of England required defendants to have counsel. The Star Chamber for swiftness and arbitrary power is a limitation on the common law. So that means it's Roman law. Think about it. Although the right to self-representation is not a license to abuse the dignity of the courtroom, neither is it a license for the court to impose upon the defendant its own choice of counsel. The defendant's Sixth Amendment right to choose counsel or to proceed pro se is an essential part of his right to a fair trial. Whereas taxation by the Parliament of Great Britain for the purpose of raising a revenue in His Majesty's colonies, provinces, and plantations in North America has been found by experience to occasion great uneasiness and disorders. Well, no shit, Batman, that from and after the passing of this act, the King and Parliament of Great Britain will not impose any duty, tax, or assessment whatever payable in any of the colonies, provinces, or plantations in North America or the West Indies, except only such duties that may be expedient to impose for the regulation of commerce. That's George III, Chapter 12, 1778. 2 years after the Declaration of Independence. That's kind of like closing the barn door after the horses get out. Taxes cause the War of Independence. If they can tax you, then you are their slave. You're forced to work for them for nothing. They're busy turning you into their slave so they can tax you and then murder you and collect the fake money in the Treasury direct account. There's two ways to conquer and enslave a nation. One is by sword and the other is by debt. They intend that you exercise your right to resist their unlawful arrest so they can murder you. They intend to get you and your sons and daughters into a killing field so they can murder you. Either way, their bankster thieves get to pillage all the fake money in the Treasury direct account, the Treasury direct account, and the International Monetary Fund, which is an agency of the World Bank, which is an agency of the United Nations. Copies of these documents can be found on my website and linked under my recent YouTube videos. For a complete set of YouTube videos with private information shares, a DVD with over 100 searchable law dictionaries and other books and forums, contact me privately at engineerwin@yahoo.com. Donations to support this work are appreciated. I prefer gold or silver coin, but as an extremely less desirable alternative, I can accept the IOUs, the Federal Reserve notes, the forced loans, the securities, the cash app gifts, the checks, the money orders, etc. Send me an email for particulars. Hospitallers. Remember we said that you got sold into slavery by hospitallers, were knights of a religious order so-called because they built a hospital in Jerusalem, where pilgrims were received. That's Tomlin's Law Dictionary, 1835 edition, volume 1. Babies born in a hospital were given a birth certificate. The beginning of the minor estate for the bankster thieves. The Greek derivative of the word sorcery is pharmakeia. Hospitals are full of sorcerers peddling pharmaceuticals. Have your babies at home is what I would strongly encourage any mom to do. If you want your babies to grow up free, that's what you're going to have to do. This is a modern day hospital right now. Hospitaller, Sacred Medical Order of the Knights of Hope, SMOC, is an order in diocese of special medical and sacred ministry. Ecumenical order, membership of the Sacred Medical Orders by invitation to both men and women who are of good character and standing in their community, want to learn about our sacred medicines, who wish to help suffering mankind. SMOC has many hundreds of members from diverse fields, now in its 11th year of service with its focus on education, medical preparedness. It is established and operates on Nevis Island, maintaining a historic and traditional link with the Knights of St. John of St. Christopher. The Knights of Hope maintain a Hospitaller, Crusader museum, and medical monastic library, as well as a service chapel. It supports the St. Thomas Anglican Church, the oldest on Nevis, built in 1643. Hospitallers. Neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as punishment for a crime whereof the party shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction. He, the prisoner, has, as a consequence of his crime, not only forfeited his liberty, but all his personal rights, except those which the law and its humanity affords him. He is, for the time being, a slave of the state. If a man be found stealing any of his brethren of the children of Israel, and maketh merchandise of him, or selleth him, then that thief shall die. Thou shalt put evil away from among you. If there were any Christians in this country, these Satanists would be getting their necks stretched. We can have a benevolent dictator or a tyrant dictator. Obama was a textbook tyrant. Pelosi gets up and tells the House we can't read this bill until after we approve it. Lindsey Williams. I don't know how many of you remember Lindsey Williams. He was a Southern Baptist preacher that went to the Alaska Pipeline in the 60s, and they liked what he was doing so much they gave him a room in their camp, and invited him to their board meetings. And he got to know some what he called elite. And for years, he would publish a video a couple times a year and say, this is what the elite are planning on doing. And so he would say what they're planning on doing, and then all of that stuff would start to happen. So the point being is that when Donald Trump won the election, the elite told him that God had intervened and their plans were on hold until Trump was out of office. And then it would be back to business as usual. And so then we saw what happened after Trump was out of office. They were back to business as usual. And now Trump is back in office. So hopefully God is in control here. We certainly need to send Trump lots of positive vibrations. I think that Trump is according to the elite, he's doing God's work, and so I think that he's a good guy. I really like him. Anyways, a rebellion to tyrants is obedience to God. We, the people, are the rightful masters of both Congress and the courts, not to overthrow the Constitution, but to overthrow the man who would pervert the Constitution. Tyranny is the exercise of power beyond right, which nobody can have a right to. This is making use of the power anyone has in his hands, not for the good of those who are under it, but to his own private, separate advantage. When the governor, however entitled, makes not the law, but his will the rule, and his commands and actions are not directed to the preservation of the properties of his people, but to the satisfaction of his own ambition, revenge, covetousness, or any other irregular passion. 'Tis a mistake to think that this fault only in monarchies. Other forms of government are liable to it as well as that. For wherever the power that is put in any hands for the government of the people and the preservation of their properties is applied to other ends and made use of to impoverish, harass, or subdue them to the arbitrary and irregular commands of those who have it, there it presently becomes tyranny, whether those that use it are one or many. And that's John Locke, Two Treatises of Government, Book 2, Chapter 18, Sections 199 and 201. This is what the Founding Fathers were reading that precipitated the War of Independence. Rebellion to tyrants is obedience to God. It's time to get unplugged, folks. The refusal of King George III to allow the colonies to operate an honest money system which freed the ordinary man from the clutches of the money manipulators was probably the prime cause of the revolution. And the money manipulators are busy today, let me tell you. America needs God. Rebellion to tyrants is obedience to God. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. Exodus 20 and 3. The New World Order require that you worship government. This is going on in China right now with the Falun Gong that are doing their organ harvesting programs. They're busy collecting the fake money in the Treasury Direct accounts and their Falun Gong victims for their bankster buddies. The end of democracy and the defeat of the American Revolution will occur when government falls into the hand of the lending institutions and the moneyed corporations. And I think it's really close to that, but I think that that Donald Trump is going to defeat it. A republic is the only form of government which is not eternally at open or secret war with the rights of mankind. And so I guess that's why they tell us we're in a democracy, huh? If once the people become inattentive to public affairs, you and I and Congress and assemblies, judges and governors shall all become wolves. It seems to be the law of our general nature in spite of individual exceptions. Never trust a government that doesn't trust its own citizens with guns. Any society that would give up a little liberty to gain a little security will deserve neither and lose both. We now live in a nation where doctors destroy health, lawyers destroy justice, universities destroy knowledge, government destroy freedom, the press destroys information, religion destroys morals, and our banks destroy the economy. Well said. You must realize that there is no government helping you, only a corporation-controlled and bankster-funded mafia enslaving you. They want you dead with their pandemics, their forced medical experiments by their sorcerers, peddling their pharmaceuticals, poisons in the food you eat and the water you drink, exposing you to lethal EMF frequencies, showering you with poisons, chemtrails, endless wars to get you into their killing fields, unlawful arrests for fake crimes, slavery in their prisons where they can subject you to their poisons in the food and drinking water. The real domestic terrorists. Although I think under Trump and Kristi Noem, I think that might be changing. I guess we'll see. In 2003, the UK government passed a new law which exempts them and the water companies from all claims as a result of disease or death from fluoride in the drinking water. Now, why would they want to do that? MKUltra, trauma-based mind control. MKUltra is a sadistic CIA project that involves satanic ritual abuse. Victims are drugged, hypnotized, traumatized, given electric shock treatment, etc. to rewire their brain. These mind control zombies have been used as spies, assassins, sex slaves, and even as celebrities. Through Project MKUltra, CIA handlers have created Manchurian candidates willing to act on command, even against their own conscience. And I'll tell you that I really think that some of these assassins, that like the people, like this guy that showed up in Colorado in that movie theater, I think he was an MKUltra victim. You know, no proof, of course. Between 1945 and 2005, the United States has attempted to overthrow their more than 40 foreign governments and to crush more than 30 populist nationalist movements struggling against intolerable regimes. In the process, the U.S. caused the end of life for several million people and condemned many millions more to a life of agony and despair. Operation Mockingbird was a fully implemented CIA program to spread disinformation through the American media. CIA Director William Colby testified to the Church Committee that over 400 CIA agents were active in the U.S. media to control what was reported through American mainstream television, newspapers, and magazines. Copy and paste this, all Muslim stories, flood them with the truth. So the shoe bomber was CIA, the Beltway snipers were CIA, the Fort Hood shooter was CIA, underwear bomber was CIA, USS Cole bombers were CIA, the Madrid train bombers were CIA. You know, you just go down the list, it's all CIA. Hi, I'm Pablo Escobar. You may know me as the greatest drug trafficker of all time. Forbes named me one of the richest people in the world for 7 consecutive years since I was making $420 million a week, smuggling 80% of all the cocaine in the United States. But did you know my son just revealed that it was all made possible because I worked for the CIA? The CIA owns everyone of any significance in the major media. We'll know our disinformation program is complete when everything the American public believes is false. Deception is a state of mind and the mind of the state. The CIA owns everyone of any major significance in the major media. Weapons of mass deception. Hey, CIA, is that a drug war you're running? 4 tons of cocaine on board a CIA plane that crashed. Oops. Or are you just running drugs? The CIA, when we're not making up evidence, we're destroying it. A true republic cannot have a secret government like the CIA that meddles in elections all over the world, as we're finding with the latest news in America, too. Yeah, they're meddling with them here. Our fearless protector, FBI, licensed to kill anyone we want, anytime, any place, without any fear of punishment. That's changing right now, big time. Pentagon, Inc., YouTube, Google, Facebook, Amazon, masquerading as private companies. When your government has all the guns and you. Just following orders. I was just following orders is never a valid excuse or justification for immoral criminal behavior, and this lame attempt to abdicate personal responsibility should never be accepted as a valid excuse for such behavior. Every great injustice has been at the hands of someone just following orders. We had grasped the great truth that it was not rifles, not tanks, not atom bombs that created power, nor upon them that power rested. Power depended upon public obedience, upon a willingness to submit. Vladimir Bukovsky, to build a castle, my life as a dissenter. Why does the government want to ban semi-automatic rifles? Because they know you won't get into boxcars willingly. China established gun control in 1935. From 1948 to 1952, 20 million political dissidents, unable to defend themselves, are rounded up and exterminated. Georgia Guidestones, they want you dead. They want the population. That's been destroyed now, though. So who's really to blame? After all, there are over 7 billion of you and just a handful of us. Ask yourself, who pulls the triggers? Who drops the bombs? Who pays the taxes? Who borrows the loans? Who buys the myths? Who writes his own? Who shuns his neighbors? Who looks the other way? Who sits around waiting for someone else to fix it all? Take a close look in the mirror. You might not like what you see.
I don't know.
Everything got burnt except the passports. 2 planes brought down 3 buildings. And there's the sheep watching it. The so-called Patriot Act is a fascist manifesto. They watch my recent video about the United States as a fascist dictatorship. Fascism equals merger of corporations and state. They want endless wars. They want pandemics. They want forced medical experiments. They want unlawful arrests. They want anarchy and murder. They want chemtrails. They want lethal EMF radiation. They want kangaroo courts. They want you to turn up dead.
Crazy.
Then they get to pillage all the fake money in the Roman cult, decay, usufruct, minor estate, treasury, direct account with the International Monetary Fund. When you get sick, their sorcerers get to sell you some pharmaceuticals. When you get really sick, their hospitaller sorcerers get to peddle some pharmaceuticals, and maybe they get to butcher you up before you turn up dead. And when you turn up dead, they get to pillage all the fake money in the Roman cult, decay, usufruct, minor estate, treasury, direct account with the International Monetary Fund. It's a win-win-win scenario for them no matter what happens. Just look at us. Everything is backwards. Everything is upside down. The doctors destroy health, lawyers destroy justice, universities destroy knowledge, government destroys freedom, the major media destroys information, and religion destroys spirituality. The United States is third in murders throughout the world. If you remove number 1 Chicago, number 2 Detroit, number 3 Washington, D.C., number 4 St. Louis, number 5 New Orleans, the United States is then 189th out of 193 countries in the entire world. P.S. All 5 cities have strict gun control laws and are run by Democrats. And there's my kind of girl. Look at that piece of equipment she's got there. All right. War is when your government tells you who the enemy is. Revolution is when you figure it out for yourself. The original assault rifle, 1774, banned from import. 1775, British attempt confiscation. 1776, revolution. When liberty and freedom are at stake, your silence isn't golden, it's yellow. I didn't say it would be easy, I said it would be the truth. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the government. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter, abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Prudence indeed will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes, and accordingly all experience has shown that mankind is more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations pursuing invariably the same object evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and provide new guards for their security. And that's the beginning, the post-amble, that's the preamble, actually, of the Declaration of Independence. So that's the end of this. I'm just going to look and see what the comments are on YouTube. And it's 2 hours and 12 minutes. And I'm probably going to make this a subscription or a membership video because there's controversial stuff in here for sure.
Yeah, you walk pretty close to the line there that you usually don't walk, I noticed.
Yeah, we'll see. you know, we'll see. That'd be if I get monetized here, and then all of a sudden they undo it here or something after the third day. I don't think they're gonna. They've demonetized a bunch of my videos, and I think that's what they'll do. Is if they don't like it, they'll just demonetize it. But that's why I'll make it a membership video only, and they still might demonetize it, but at least it won't be available to the public. So yeah, I think that's what I'm going to do. Anyways, does anybody have any questions? This is bar members 9, and they're all Satanists, Masons. Yeah, don't get me going. This is a lot of the stuff I used in my court case.
He wants to go. I can tell. Oh. I hope you didn't touch the third rail, Ron.
That's the third rail. What's the third rail?
You'll find out if it gets removed.
Yeah, I'm not. Whatever. I ain't too worried about it.
Yeah.
There's actually a lot of my videos. This is not too different from a lot of my videos. I mean, anybody that's been on this channel knows the stuff that I talk about, and so there's a lot of my videos are not. There's a lot of them that are fully monetized, fully. Here, let me go and look. There's some of them that they demonetized.
You quoted that Michael Elner twice, didn't you?
Sorry?
Michael Elner. Just look at us. Everything's upside down, everything is backwards.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah, it's one of my faves.
See, I'm just looking at the We Are Law ones. How many of those are monetized and how many are demonetized? I started putting up short ones too, like a minute or less. The We Are Law one from the 28th of March is fully monetized. The one from 21st of March is fully monetized. The one from 7th of March is fully monetized. The one from 28th of February, oh, that's limited. That one's limited monetization. So there's most of them are monetized, but there's the one on the 25th of January is limited monetization. But
you were talking a lot about your court cases with those ones.
Yeah. Yeah. So, anyways, they monetized my channel, and what they did is I went and monetized all the videos, and then they basically said which ones could be monetized and which ones there's a bunch of them that are not monetized, and they're not advertiser friendly is what they call it. And so whatever, some advertisers don't like that kind of stuff, and I understand. If an advertiser doesn't want to advertise, with me because they don't like the stuff I'm talking about, then that's fine. I can deal with that. That's okay. And that's called free enterprise, And
right.
so I don't fault them for that. I mean, that's if the idea of them taking my video down, though, that's a problem. But there's a bunch of them. I don't think they're going to take it down. If anything, they'll just demonetize it, in my opinion. I guess we'll see.
So when you upload, how long does it take before you get that notification that they're going to monetize it?
Well, I set this up to be monetized, and but what I'm going to do is I will make it member only, and so I don't know how that works. They usually have something. They have algorithms that search for stuff. You know what I mean? And I can actually. It used to be, and I even now the ones that are not monetized, I can ask them to manually review it. But they have algorithms, and I don't worry about it. Most of them they allow to be monetized. Sometimes, they demonetize it. So I mean, I'm on the edge. So I don't worry about it too much. But it's amazing how many, like, I could go through the ones that they demonetized, and I can ask them to review them, and they will, and they'll get back with me and they'll say, well, this one still, we reviewed it and it still needs to be demonetized. So whatever, that's fine.
Does it ever say against community guidelines or anything like that?
It's more like if it's against community guidelines, then they'll take it down. But that's a lot more. They really, I can't, um, I can't make threats. Okay, I mean, if you look at that Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act, I can't talk about pornography. I can't make threats or threaten anybody. Um, and that's not unrealistic, actually. That's the only stuff that they can really do against the community guidelines. And I think that under the Biden administration, they were stretching that big time. But now it's Trump, and that's why they monetized all my stuff, because they know that it's coming. I'm still going to sue them, and so I'll sue them for about 10 million or something, and see what happens. Um, because that's
They deserve it. Come on, they deserve it.
they do. They've been shadow banning me and doing all sorts of stuff. So, absolutely, I'll. It's like throwing mud against a wall. You never know what's going to stick. There was a guy, a friend of mine, that had a YouTube channel, and he was in Omaha, Nebraska, and they took his channel down, and he just filed an action in small claims court, and they immediately brought it back, and but it hasn't been resolved because in Omaha, in Nebraska, they can do, like, I think $6,000. It's the maximum uh, uh, thing you can sue them for in small claims court is $6,000. So it hasn't gotten to the point that there's a settlement or anything. But they brought it back immediately. He was telling me about it, and they brought it back. It's not a big YouTube channel, but he just took them into small claims court, and so mine has been here a lot longer. I mean, my channel, I put it up in 2011, and and they have they've done a bunch of things. There's a bunch of my videos that are now fully monetized that they demonetized and censored them and did all sorts of stuff. And so my channel could be a lot bigger if it wasn't for their shadow banning and all that stuff. That's why I say I think the 10 mil might be a realistic amount to sue them for. But we'll see when the time comes. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. We can't sit and complain about it. We got to do action, right? So I have a question. If nobody else has anything to do or any other questions, I want to ask you something about Trumper.
Okay.
So is he really taking down the CIA? Is that, I know you mentioned it briefly a couple of weeks ago, but I like all your memes you wrote about the CIA. Those are spot on, perfectly aligned.
Yeah, I think that he is. I think he's gonna. It's one thing at a time. He's got to do it all systematically. You got to build a case. You can't just take him down. He's got to build a case. And so I think that what's going to happen is there's already arrests happening. I think that what I'm hearing is that there's some low profile arrests that would happen. He said, but justice has to be seen to be done. Okay, so that means everybody's got to see it, and they're by the summer. First of all, Comey, the Russia hoax is going to be the first, group of arrests. And Comey, if you watch Cash Patel's um, government gangsters video, if you haven't, I'd go to BitChute and watch that video. It's about an hour-long video. It's a great video. It's really well done, and it talks about government gangsters, and you'll see see what's going to happen. He's now the director of the FBI, and so you can imagine what's going down, and it's already started. But what's going to happen is there's going to be some very public, that'll be all over the world. Notice that people will be getting arrested. Comey eventually will get arrested, but I don't think they're saying that he's not going to get arrested probably till the fall. But there's going to be other ones here pretty soon. And so there'll be some very, very public arrests. There's going to be, the shit is going to hit the fan big time. And there are going to be war crimes trials. It's the military. There's not going to be civilian courts. This is war. We were attacked. That's all going to come out. That we were attacked. The elections, they're going to have to go. They're going to go to paper ballots, no machines. It's going to be small precincts, and there's going to be an executive order that's going to come out this summer about that. And so we were attacked by China and Cuba and Venezuela, Serbia, and some NATO countries. And so there's the shit is it's it's already hitting the fan, but it's really going to hit the fan later this year towards the summer and the fall. And so they're going to come out with, so it's a lot of the stuff has got to happen because they got to justify because he's got to give them time to if they're going to go to paper ballots and small precincts, going to be 1,500 or less instead of 50,000. So it's going to be very small precincts, a whole bunch of precincts where there was, a few, and so it's got to be, and the ballots have to be counted where cast. They cannot be transported anywhere. They have to be counted where cast. There's a bunch of things that have to happen, and so it's going to be huge. And they're gonna throw out all of the voter lists, all that stuff everywhere. It's gonna start over from scratch, and so all the voter registrations, everything have to be done from scratch, and so there's gonna be a bunch of stuff. Anyways, yeah, they know that we were attacked. That's why the military courts are going to be involved, because the civilian courts, when it's international law, stealing an election is international law. That's an act of war, and when warfare is involved, the military steps in, and it won't be the civilian courts. None of that stuff will be handled by the civilian courts. It'll all be military courts, and Guantanamo Bay, and they'll be taking people to Guantanamo Bay. So we'll see how that all plays out. It's we'll see. That's all I can say. But I think that's part of it. Is the CIA is going to be done. There's going to be a bunch of shit that's going to go down, and a bunch of shit. There's huge stuff.
I heard they're expanding Guantanamo.
You mean they already did expand it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they expanded it. It's way huge. They got, what I heard is they have housing for 250,000 jail guards.
Mm.
And so, yeah, that's like a city, They got housing for 250,000 jail guards. So it's like a city. They're going to have a couple of like aircraft carriers in the harbor that'll be prison ships, and they'll be keeping people in those prison ships too, and so it's huge. It's huge. It's the stuff that's going down like you just can't imagine.
I follow this YouTuber that has traveled to Cuba for about the past 3 years, and the Cuban people, they know what's going on, but they won't dare mention anything about that on, to a foreigner, right? But they live like peasants because of the action that's going on in that region.
Yeah, they say that. Well, we'll see, but I have a feeling that we'll invade Cuba, we'll invade Venezuela. There's going to be war, and we might go to war with China. I mean, we'll see what happens. I don't know. I hope not, but it might come down to that. I mean, it depends. China's already rattling the sabers because they know what they did, and they know that we know what they did, and so that's why the tariffs they're not backing down as far as these tariffs are concerned, and so we'll see what happens. It's going to get ugly, but we're hoping that we can resolve this without warfare. But they attacked us.
Well, it's election day here tomorrow, so they're saying that if the Liberal Party gets in again, which is Trump's best friend, Mr. Carney, that'll occur here because there'll be so many. It's just like Justin Trudeau getting in again, right?
Yeah, I know. I'm curious to see. So there is election that's all across Canada.
Yep, tomorrow's the big day.
I didn't know that.
So we'll see if it takes them 2 weeks to decide.
Well, the
Right.
thing about Canada, because they got 5 parties or more, that the party that wins it can win with like 20% of the vote.
Well, Glenn, nobody votes, right? I think 38% only voted in the last federal election.
Really?
So nobody votes.
Yeah, not surprised. I guess we'll see.
Yes, we'll see. We'll see by next week, hopefully.
Yeah.
So, Brian, I there was somebody that had an open mic, and I just have to unmute him now. He might have had a question. So, I just have one more question about crypto, and then I'm gonna unmute Brian here because he might have a question. So, let me do that.
Okay. What do you want to know about crypto?
Brian, did you have a question for Glenn? Is that
Yes,
why
I,
your
I, I
mic
do.
was on? Okay,
Yes,
go ahead.
thank you.
Go
I
ahead.
appreciate that very much. And thank you for your help too this past week or two. Anyway, yes, Glenn, and thank you for all you do, buddy. I mean, I've been following you for a while and I've seen probably every video you've done, and I appreciate your work so much. And because you do seem to have a line in on Trump, of course, much better than I do. I'm just curious. My spidey senses go up when I see what's going on as far as how they got the Doge thing going. They found he's had Musk, I believe, found some money like 500 billion or something like that. Well, they turned around and they put that. He's putting that in. He's putting that back into, I believe, crypto, if I'm not mistaken. That and or a couple of other things as opposed to maybe where it's exactly needed. But and then there's another thing. What about kind of what we've done? I mean, that was Fauci's our lab. Work from Wake Forest. I mean, things like that was done. And then another thing too. What about the dude that is the Soros guy that he's put in one of the important cabinets up there? Why would he put somebody like that in? And then a couple other players that are pretty nefarious. Then the only other thing I think I had was one more question that was like that. Oh gosh. Oh yes. So then you have you have everything going. So it looks like they may be trying to do away with some of the civil servants. Well, if they do away with the civil servants and then they go private to corporations, or they go to bureaucrats that are doing it, well, guess who doesn't have to answer to Congress? And then they can do what they want. And one more thing, he's investing all of this into Stargate, and Stargate is this mRNA. And then what about all of the identification that's going to be needed for all of this, and the real ID, and having to get all that? I just see this as like everybody's kind of maybe played right into the opposition's hands, but it's not really opposition. It's kind of now controlled, and phew, they, you know, a little bit longer, we might have made, you know, give ourselves a little bit of time, but it's still going straight way as they planned it. And I'm just curious what you think about that, because that's what I'm hearing a lot about that from just, you know, a few of the circles that I'm in, and I'd love to get your impression on those things, and I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Okay, well, first of all, I don't listen to the mainstream media, and so I don't know what they're telling you, and I think it's all full of shit anyway. So that's why I don't listen to it.
Me neither.
And so I don't know where you're getting the stuff about the George Soros guy. I can tell you that Trump's son-in-law is Jewish. Trump's daughter is converted to Judaism. But I think that he's a really smart guy, and he knows what's going on. And I'm hearing that he's playing Israel too. And um, so we'll see. You know who I listen to all the time, and I really get a lot of really good information is 107. And so I get his. As a matter of fact, I downloaded a 107 video here today, and I'm going to play some 107 videos tomorrow at our event because 107, I don't know who he is. All you ever see is his boots, and so I don't know who he is, but he's got contacts. I'm telling you, he's got contacts. He knows. He hobnobs with General Flynn and Mike Lindell and all those guys, and Roseanne Barr, and so I don't know who he is, but he's got contacts. He knows what's going on, and that's why I like listening to what he's talking about, because I think it gives you a better idea on what's really happening behind the scenes. The I guess we'll see what's happening, because that's all I listen to is that um, 107, and that guy is he's in there somehow. I don't know who he knows. I think he knows Trump. Anyways, um, but how well he knows Trump, or how much, the way he talks, he's right in there. He knows what's going on and what's planned. And matter of fact, a lot of the stuff I just told you is stuff that I got from 107. And so and it's not just one video. I've collected a lot of videos from 107. You get them off of Rumble, and I download them. When I get a good video, I download it, because I like to listen to it more than once, and because a lot of times you'll get more out of it the second time. 107 does a lot of interviews with Nino, but there's other interviews 107 does. There's some good information in there, and so I would that's what I would recommend if you want to know more about what's going on. I would say 107's the guy to listen to, and there's most of them I think are just somebody's opinion, but 107, he's got contacts in there. He's really in there, and um, it's not hearsay. The other ones, they just talk about hearsay, so I don't even listen to them. Another guy to listen to is what's his name? Patrick Byrne. He's mixed up in this stuff too, big time. So any Byrne, okay, any videos with Patrick Byrne or General Flynn, okay, those are the ones that I listen to the most, and those ones are those are the ones that I think you're going to get accurate information about what's coming, and they can't talk about everything. They can't tell the enemy. When you're in warfare, you don't tell the enemy what you're going to do, because then the enemy can prepare for it. So they have to be careful what they say, and so you have to keep that in mind, that some of the stuff they might be saying is stuff that they want the enemy to think, so that they can the enemy will take the bait, you know. So you have to keep that in mind. And so that's why I like 107, General Flynn, and Patrick Byrne. That guy is a real patriot. Patrick Byrne, he's a really good guy, and so I like him. There's a lot of people that I don't listen to at all. That just, they're full of shit in my opinion. Like Charlie Ward, don't listen to him at all. I think he's full of shit. There's a bunch of people I think are just full of shit, so I don't listen to them at all. And so that's why all I can say is I like 107, General
What
Flynn.
about that other Glenn dude? That Glenn dude, he's always talking patriot talk too. I don't know his last name though. I only know Glenn Fern. I don't know, but he does mainstream talk about all this too. Do you know who I'm referring to?
Nope.
Glenn Beck.
Oh, Glenn Beck. I haven't.
Yes, Glenn
You
Beck.
know, I'm not sure how much Glenn Beck knows. He's got some interesting. He's talk radio, and so he's a former Fox News guy. Another guy I like listening to once in a while is Tucker Carlson. But and Glenn Beck, he's okay. He's okay, but I don't. I'm not sure how much he's connected. You know what I mean? I think he's just listening to the news and then talking about the news. Tucker Carlson is another good guy that I like listening to. He's got some really good interviews. That guy is really that guy is brilliant. He's another good guy, but Glenn Beck, he's okay. I don't think he's full of shit per se. I just don't think that he's that connected. You know, I can tell you that 107 is major connected. I mean, you know, I listened to a bunch of videos of his. One video he said that he was on a yacht with a general when the Oklahoma City bombing happened. Well, I was in Oklahoma City when that happened, and so I remember that. And he was on a yacht with a general. That was in the mid 90s. You know, that's like 30 years ago. So here he is hobnobbing with generals and stuff for the last 30 years. He's got contacts. I got to tell you, he's got contacts. And so, you know, that's why I like
I heard him
107.
talking on a video. Yeah, I heard him talking on a video with Roseanne Barr that he was at Trump's Liago, Florida estate, whatever you call it.
Mar-a-Lago.
Mansion.
Yep.
Mar-a-Lago, yeah. Can't even say it right. But yeah, he's been there many times.
Yeah.
The way that he was talking to me.
There's videos where 107 will be at Mar-a-Lago. And there's videos where he's off the coast of Antarctica. There's videos on a boat off the coast of Antarctica. There's videos where he is over in, I mean, he's always somewhere. He lives in Hawaii, and his you know, there's a lot of videos of him in Hawaii too. But most of the stuff, a lot of stuff is he's all over the place. And so he travels for some reason. That's why I say I think he's got some contacts, and he's hooked in. He's doing stuff, you know. And so I really like 107. He's a Christian. He likes to say a prayer. He's a good guy, and so you know, I really like 107. I think that he can't tell you everything. He can only tell you what he can tell you. And so so you just got to keep that in mind too, that he's not telling you everything. He can't tell you everything. You don't want to let the enemy know what you're doing. And so but I think he's a really good guy, and so I really like 107 for sure. And so a lot of times you'll see him have a prayer with the group, and you know, I mean, that just speaks volumes in my opinion. And so you know, he's a really good guy. So that we need more people like that, you know, in government, people that are, you know, God-fearing people. But so it's a networking thing. You know, we don't know everything. Um, and so 107's one guy, and Patrick Byrne, I like him, and you know, the other ones like Roseanne Barr, like, you know, I don't think she'd say anything that's dishonest. She's Jewish actually, and so I don't think she's dishonest or anything, but she's just not connected like 107, and I don't think she is. She might be. It's hard to say,
Well, they've
but
done interviews together. Like she does, she used to do regular uploads on YouTube, right? Where she's speaking with them for over an hour. So obviously that they're, you know, connected. They
yeah,
always speak on the Senate and how poorly of a job that they're doing and all that. So, and she brings up the fact that when she ran for president, how what they did to, you know, stop her from, you know, being an independent, right? Because she believes that she had, you know, the control of that election when she was an independent, when it was all, you know, the Mason money or whatever, the cabal money that always does, instead of an election, it's always a selection, right? So that's what
right.
they were talking about. But
Yep.
no,
Well,
Roseanne Barr and him, I believe, are very, very tight.
yeah. And so, and General Flynn, I like General Flynn. He's a good guy too. I bought his book about fifth generation warfare, and I would highly recommend anybody to get that book um, because it really teaches you. I mean, and who better to do it than a you know, a 3-star general, um, but you know, so he knows he's involved in that stuff and knows about, you know, how to do it and all that stuff, and so yeah, um, so General Flynn's another good one, and General Flynn is supposed to be, you know, he's not um um he's not Trump's um, national security advisor, although he could do it anytime you want. Trump told him that you can have any job you want, and so at least that's what he said. And so, and I believe that that's probably true. Um, and so he's definitely been abused for doing the right thing, and so I like General Flynn. I think he's a good guy too.
Yeah, a lot of folks did. A lot of folks.
Yep. So
If I'm
is that about it then?
Well, if I could just rebut and just let you know, for one thing, I do not do any news. I haven't done any of that for a very, very long time. I will go to Getter and I get some of the information from the War Room, and the one reason is that if I've heard Bannon talk about agency once, I've heard him talk about it, 100 times, and so obviously he knows what's going on. Many of them do that come on there. Flynn is amazing. That Burn, I don't know him, and then 107. When you say that, is that the number 107, or is it spelled out like one woe and e? And then another person that I do listen to off the YouTube, and I've been listening to her since she has a show on Thursday on CHD TV, which is Children's Health Defense, which is Kennedy's project. And then also, too, speaking of that, I've kind of seen him deflect and detract a little bit about, his positioning on here and there and this and that. But another thing on that is that, oh shit, I just lost my point. the main thing on that end is the Solaria report and Catherine Austin Fitz. You know, she was part of the. I think she was in there with Reagan, and in fact, she was the one about the $21 trillion. And then the next day, that Rumsfeld let everybody know. And then the next day, towers come down, and then no one asked any more questions about that. So she's been at least in there that long, and there's some seriously posed questions that she does in her 2 or 3 little quick minutes she does comes up on YouTube and on Facebook. But at any rate, that's all. I just wanted to put that out there, and then also too, the only other thing is that Trump was offered a kingdom over there, over there in that land, where his daughter, like you say, his daughter and son-in-law and whatnot have conformed or changed over to Judaism and whatnot. But at any rate, I just want to thank you again for all your hard work. And I definitely would like to know about that 107 so I can check that out on Rumble. And much appreciated. Thank you again. Godspeed.
All right. Well, yeah, I'm familiar with Catherine Austin Fitz, and I don't think she's that connected. I think she's really she worked for HUD back. She was like an undersecretary back under Reagan or something like that. So and she got blackballed too, and so um um so I don't think that she's saying anything. I don't think she's deliberately bad or anything like that. She's just not someone that I pay much attention to because I don't think she's that connected. I'm just interested in hearing what's happening, and so that I can try and protect myself. And as far as cryptos are concerned, I am heavily into cryptos. They're going to have a cryptocurrency fund. Trump has been talking about it. He wants to make America the cryptocurrency capital of the world, and there's going to be a what do they call it? A cryptocurrency. The government has seized quite a bit of cryptocurrencies from people that were doing things illegal and stuff like that, and so they've seized a bunch, and so they're going to start having a cryptocurrency fund, and I think they should. I think that's a good idea. So how it all plays out, is, I guess we'll see. We're all pawns in a big game of chess. I'm into cryptos big time. I think cryptos are going to be the wave of the future. Um, and there's going to be opportunities to make a lot of money. And I like cryptos because like Bitcoin, because it's not controlled by any government, and so it's completely out of their control. And the reason I know it's not controlled by the government is because I've mined Bitcoin. So if I mine Bitcoin, I can go out and I can mine Bitcoin anytime I want. And I've mined Dogecoin, I've mined Litecoin, I've mined a lot of different kinds of coins. And so my point being is that if I can mine it, then the government doesn't control it. And and so I like that kind of stuff. And I can use my wallet. I don't have to have a bank account. It's called being unbanked. And I have a bank account, but I don't have to. And I have a Coinbase account, but again, it's nothing forcing me to do that. I can walk away from that stuff at any time. I use them because they're useful, and the bank account's useful because I can go to an ATM and I can get cash, and I can have money. I have a Coinbase card where I can use my Coinbase card and spend my cryptos just like I spend Federal Reserve notes. I can go and buy something using cryptos, and I do it all the time. And so I'm working on getting another kind of card, a Visa or MasterCard that's going to be something else. So it'll be where I charge it up with cryptos. And so I've been thinking about that. But again, that's given me more freedom. and I don't need to, and it's not tied to the Federal Reserve note, and I can do it however I want to do it. And so I think cryptos is going to be the wave of the future, and the mark of the beast and all that stuff. I think that we might have dodged that bullet. I guess we'll see. I don't think that. I think they're still going to try and implement that stuff. I think the central bank digital currency is history. They're going to, like Ripple, I think is going to be plan B. And so I'm planning on making a bunch of money with Ripple because that's going to be plan B, and it's going to go up a lot. And so I'm planning on making a bunch of money with Ripple, and then I'm going to dump it because it's not going to be successful, just like the central bank digital currency wasn't successful. And so all prophecy is conditional. You have to understand this. All prophecy is conditional. If the people repent, it doesn't have to happen. Jonah and the whale and Nineveh is a perfect example. And so if the people repent, it doesn't have to happen. The book of Revelations is not set in stone. And so if the people repent, it doesn't have to happen. And so we'll see how it all plays out. But so I'm looking forward to. I'm thinking that the cryptos are going to be good, and uh, some of them, the New World Order crowd might try and do things, and so we got to be on top of that, and be aware of that, and have some gold and silver, and diversify. It's all about diversifying, and so we'll see how it all plays out. But so, anyways, thanks for watching, everybody. And we'll see you next week, same time, same place, same channel. I'll hold it now.
I got a bad joke. I
You
got a
do?
bad
Okay.
joke to make. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. What did one ocean say to the other ocean?
I don't know.
Nothing. They just waved.
Go.
Hey, I waited 2 weeks for that one. I looked up jokes for 2 weeks to get that one. So there you go. I don't have another one, but yeah, that's the
Okay.
only bad one to
Well,
get to me.
it's good to have a good laugh. The I'll see
Well,
you
thanks.
guys next week, same time, same place, same channel.
Sounds great. So thanks for spending so much time here tonight. I really appreciate it. And
No
it's good
problem.
to hear your voice.
Well, it'd be nice if you were here.
I know. Well, I just got to get my cryptos all in order. That's what I'm trying to do. I wanted to ask you about Tether, but I'll wait till next week. So,
Well, what about Tether?
well, that's where we got to put everything into, right? So you said they ruled out one of the cryptocurrencies. Is Tether going to be one of the ones that's going to be safe or what?
Well, I think eventually it's going to crash like all the rest, but right now it's okay to use it. I use it, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Did you see that thing I sent you about exceedingly?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, so I mean, it uses Tether. Right now, I'm doing exceedingly. I'm planning on. I have an investment that's going to roll over here in about on Monday, and I'm going to roll it into a quarterly investment, and
The
then I've
subscription.
did you see the stuff about Smart Lab?
No, I don't think so. You didn't send me that. But
Well,
you sent me about the prescription or the subscription based one.
yeah, the exceedingly.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Well, no, I
Yeah.
sent you the Smart Lab is the subscription based one, and that's a good one too. That's a good one too. But again, you don't want to with something like that. It's risky. Okay, you just have to understand that it's risky, and
But I'm going in small, so it's not like I'm going to be losing my shirt, right? Because I already
well,
lost it a long time ago.
there you go. Eh? Well, what I did
Yeah.
with the exceedingly is we were helping this friend that's in jail, and this other friend wanted us to help him, and so they said that they didn't, well, they were paying a lot of money for it because we're having to buy airline tickets and all sorts of stuff, right? And so they said that they said that and rather than do that, they turned us on to this exceedingly. And so what I figured is that since they're basically they got a lot of money. Let me put it this way: they got a lot of money, and with this smart lab, okay, they have with smart lab, and smart lab is really a really interesting deal, and I don't want to talk about it tonight, but they told us about this exceedingly, and I figured, well, if they want me to help this guy, and I've been helping them, but so I put $13,000 in that exceedingly, and a month later I got it. It was at $26,000 because I got that much interest, and so then what I did was I took out of that. I took $6,000, left 17,000. I rolled that over again, and in another month I had 31,000, 32,000, and then I took 20,000 out. So I put in 13,000, and I've gotten 26,000 out, and I still have 10,000, and it's rolling over right now to it'll be about just a little over 20,000, and it's all in Tether, and what I'm going to do the 90-day one, the quarterly one, and the quarterly one is going to give me 800% in a quarter. So that'll give me, I'll put in 20,000, and so then that'll go to 800%. So that's 160. So I'll have $180,000 in July, and
No, you better be booking that Howard Hughes Hotel Bayshore hotel room for us, though.
well, what I'm figuring is
Don't tell your wife.
the smart lab. The smart lab is another screaming deal, but it's not as good as that one. But you got to diversify, right? And so I've been wanting to buy a $50,000 smart lab subscription, and so smart lab is not as good as that, but it's still a screaming deal. That's where these other people made their money, is smart lab. And this lady, this friend of mine that I'm telling you about, she was we went to this Texit coin event, and they told her that she had to pay another $1,000, and she pulled out a wad of $100 bills out of her purse and counted out $1,000, and it didn't even put a dent in that wad of $100 bills, and gave it to him right then and there, and I just watched her do it. And so she's got I don't know, it's none of my business anyways, but I knew that she had the money to that's why I went with the whole 13,000 in there, because I figured that she was basically, if she wanted me to help this friend of hers, she's going to have to basically guarantee that. So I put in the whole 13,000, and so far I've gotten 26,000. So I'm on house money now. I don't really care what happens. Anyways, so there's some screaming deals. That exceedingly so far has worked out really good. But I wouldn't, you just don't know. You just don't know. But it's supposed to be equivalent to these hedge funds. These hedge funds have these kinds of deals all the time, and so they're supposed to be doing the same kind of things these hedge funds do. And the hedge funds are the only people that can invest in these hedge funds are like billionaires, and because it's way beyond what average people like us can get involved in. And this guy is supposed to have the same kind of investments, making it available to little people. Anyways, who knows? And so if next summer I get my 200, and it'll be what, 180,000, then I'm going to buy a $55,000 smart lab subscription, and I'll roll the rest of it over, and 3 months later I'll have over $1 million. And so that's what my goal is. We'll see what happens. But any way you want to look at it, if I get my smart lab, my 55,000, I'm in hog heaven, and if it falls apart after that, then I don't care, because I'm in hog heaven. I'm already in hog heaven because I've already doubled my money, and so any way you want to look at it, I'm in hog heaven. Anyway, so we'll see you guys next week, And Lori, if you want to talk about it more, call me on WhatsApp and we can talk about it. Okay.
Sounds good.
All right. Take care.
You too.
See ya.